Town Board. And let's begin with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tonight, it appears that maybe because of the construction, our camera power has been interrupted. Excuse me? Oh, it's working. Okay. All right, good. All right, good. So because we are again broadcasting on our YouTube channel tonight, I'll just ask all the board members and the folks up in the dais here to make sure that you key your microphone when you're going to talk. Last time we did this broadcast, the folks that didn't key their microphone couldn't be heard on the broadcast. So you can leave it on if you want, but I always turn mine off in case I'm coughing or something. I don't want that to be going out in the broadcast. So anyway, make sure you key your mic and be mindful of of that, because that's the audio that goes out on the broadcast. Okay, so first order of business will be the approval of minutes, and first thing I think would probably be the regular town board meeting from October 14, 2024. And I only had one correction to make, I guess, on the draft minutes. And that is that on the very first page, it says under call to order, second paragraph, Chairman Moosberger noted that this would be the first meeting with an online broadcast via YouTube, and it should be spelled out Y-O-U, I think, tube. I mean, I think that's the way it's not YouTube, like the letter U. It's Y-O-U. Other than that, I had no corrections or changes. Does anybody else have any corrections or changes to the minutes?
Was Chad Isaacson at that meeting?
Does it
doesn't say so, but
doesn't say so. But I think he was.
Okay, that's the only thing.
Because he talked about the pavement management plan. That's a good catch. Yeah, his name should be added to the attendees, I think. Anything else? No. John, any changes to those minutes that you'd like to see us make? No. Okay. So I'll move that with those two changes or corrections that we approve the minutes from the October 14, 2024 town board meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, move and second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, those are approved. All right, and then we'll go on to the, let's see which one's next on the agenda here. It's the 10/23/24 special meeting. And that's the one, that was the construction renovation project kickoff with Mission Construction. I don't believe I have any changes or corrections to those minutes. Does anybody else have any? No. I'll move the adoption of the draft minutes then from the October 23, 2024 special meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, those are approved. The next and final minutes that we need to approve are those of the October 28 special meeting, which was to talk about the street improvement project update with the engineer. I think that's the only topic. I don't have any changes to those minutes of that special meeting. Does anybody else have any?
I don't.
None? Okay. I'll move then that we adopt the draft minutes of the October 28, 2024 special meeting.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Nope. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. So those minutes are approved as well then. Let's see. Next would be the treasurer's report and payment of bills. So I'll let our treasurer take it from here. Marcia? Make sure you key your mic.
I did.
Okay. Beautiful.
In the month of October, the town recorded $15,162.14 in receipts. 8,587 were from building permits, 480 from utility permits, 5,000 from a pool fence escrow, There was a $100 kennel permit and a 50-cent data request. In the same month, the town spent $79,979.88. $8,557 was payroll. $10,926 was the second half of the Middle St. Croix Water Management Organization. $5,300 for lawn maintenance. $3,095 for legal. $2,900 for a pavement management plan. $7,200 or almost $7,300 for building inspection. $6,111 for recycling. $7,483 for ice and snow control. That we finally kind of got straightened out from last year. $14,630 from some tree work for M&S and ditch mowing, and $2,136, which was the remaining of the audit from Abdul for 23, bringing the current assets to $3,201,744.30. There are 2 CDs that will mature this month, both with Lake Area Bank. They do not mature until the 30th of the month, so I will call you, Phil, when we get to that point.
Okay, very good. Anything else?
Any questions? I was just going to ask Mr. Bulow. I don't think I've received a time card from you since May, maybe. So if you could get those in December so that we can get the dollars in the right budget year, that would be great. Thank you. Other than that, I did have, looking at the ARPA funds, after we paid for some pothole patch and some crack sealing, we have, and the first mission payment, we have $155,578 left in the ARPA account currently. There's $152,198 left on the contract for payment. So in December, we'll have to spend $3,380 to make sure that we've successfully used all of our ARPA funds.
Okay, we're using it all on capital projects, whether it's roads or road maintenance anyway, and some of it's being used on the building renovation, right?
Yes. The stuff that there were 2 things that were pothole patch and the crack sealing, which was not capital projects.
Yeah, that's road maintenance.
Just maintenance. So I'm going to next month bring a motion with me so that the board can make a motion to transfer the leftover funds in the maintenance account to the CIP account so we can use it on capital projects.
Perfect. Thank you. I will move that we accept the treasurer's report and approve the payment of the bills as presented by the clerk. Do I have a second? Second. And moved and seconded that we accept the treasurer's report and pay the bills. Any discussion? Hearing none, I think we'll probably need a roll call vote on this.
Chairman Newsberger,
Aye.
Supervisor Buell,
Aye.
Supervisor Buell.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, next, and thank you, Marcia, for that report. Appreciate it. Planning Commission report. Dell is here instead of Mark. Yeah.
It does work.
Oh, look at that. We've got the thing oriented incorrectly there, don't we?
Trees.
Betsy, there's a preset button for Dell at the podium if you want to look it up and hit that button for him. I don't know.
Okay. Good evening. The Planning Commission met on the 24th of last month and covered a number of topics, including consideration of things to do with a township planner. That was our first discussion on that. And we will be talking to a couple of people at our next meeting, which is the 21st, Thursday? Next week, anyway. Next week, Thursday, is our next Planning Commission meeting. Then we also talked about cannabis business activities. And this is one of those things which doesn't really have an upside for the township. You know, there's no benefit to us to have, you know, allowances for the cannabis business, but we took the ordinance that, the sample ordinance that was provided by, I think a state something or other. And we went through it, and there's just a ton of things, including definitions of manufacturer, organizer, cultivator, cannabis products, retailers, manufacturers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And wow, we could have a lot of industry in the township if we approved all of those. And conceivably, you could have some of those, probably not all of those, but some townships or some municipalities probably would. We got down to the part where we made a proposal or a recommendation that we allow it in identified zoning districts, specifically the HCB district, not SFE, but Highway Commercial -B district, we thought would be appropriate for cannabis businesses. And so in the section under allowed uses for various types of cannabis businesses, like cultivator, manufacturer, wholesaler, et cetera, we suggest that they be allowed in HCB in all cases. There wasn't anything else except possible hours of operation. And we understand that the, excuse me, that the county is putting together some regulations regarding cannabis in the county. And we don't know, at the time, we didn't know what they were going to do at that point. And whether they were going to allow hours until 2 a.m. or not. If they don't establish specific hours of operation, we suggest that we have hours from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. 7 days a week. And that's as abbreviated as we can get, I guess. Otherwise, we can wait to learn what hours are established by the county. I don't know if there's a deadline on us to pass our ordinance regarding cannabis businesses.
Mr. Chair and Board, there really isn't a hard deadline, but I can't remember if your town adopted a moratorium or not, but that runs through the end of the year here. So the goal is to, generally the advice is to try to get something adopted before the end of the year. Now, if it goes into January, probably no licenses will be issued yet, so it's probably not too late, but certainly it would be best if you could adopt something in December.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, can I just speak to the hours of operation?
Please do.
The reason it was worded that way is the town doesn't have the authority to set hours of operation. So it's the default set in statute unless the county adopts stricter hours of operation. So unfortunately, the town cannot set alternative hours of operation.
So we can't set hours of operation if the county has not done it?
Correct.
Okay. Forget I said that then. Anyway, most of the ordinance has to do with complying with Minnesota state statutes, number, point number, et cetera. And there are prohibitions, and it's up to the township, I guess, to decide if they want to adopt this. And do you have this in your packets?
Yes.
Okay, whether you want to adopt this or go with something a little more abbreviated. If so, The very first page of your packet has proposal to have an amendment to section 11 and have a section 1121, 1121.1, 1121.2. Just three sentences, or 3 points rather, just to cover things until we get to a point where the county has established their regulations and we can do something a little more thorough.
So Del, I don't think we have that abbreviated version you're talking about. I don't see it in my packet, but you're saying that if we don't want to adopt this, we could adopt an abbreviated kind of a placeholder
Okay,
ordinance. Is that what you're saying?
maybe this was only in the planning commission's folder. And I can quickly read this to you if you'd like. Point 1 is cannabis business. Point 2 is longer. Required permits, it would be, the cannabis business would be allowed in the highway commercial / business district with an interim use permit. And then the last point is other requirements must comply with all rules and regulations of federal, state, and local agencies. And that's it. It's short and sweet.
Couple of quick questions, Del.
Sure.
I'll wait till you're finished though, because
I'm finished.
Okay. So is this proposed ordinance that we have in front of us, is this the sample ordinance that the state?
Yes,
Or I was going to say, there was another version that maybe was drafted by our attorney, Attorney Gilchrist. And then did the planning commission modify either of those, in what they're presenting today?
we didn't really modify anything because we felt like it was getting into an area that we really weren't comfortable in. It's something the state wants us to do. Not that we're generating it, it's not like keeping dogs and cats or goats, whatever, and we looked at all the definitions, we looked at all the allowed use parts, and that's the only part that we felt that we had any leeway to have a say in it. And that was in where we allow the uses.
Sure.
And that was just in zoning district HCB.
Right.
Everything else is pretty much what came from, I don't know if it was from the state or if it was from some other organization, but it was pretty much the sample document.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Del. And I just should ask council, is this a version that you have modified in some way, or is this just the state's kind of boilerplate proposed ordinance?
So, Mr. Chair and Board, this is an ordinance I drafted.
Okay.
So it's not the state, not that it doesn't have parts that were
Right.
from the sample, but no, and if I may, I mean, to the point, I would really encourage you to strongly consider a more thorough ordinance like this rather than the 3 provisions, because frankly, I mean, you have to, there's portions in here that aren't addressed in state law. Some of the definitions, frankly, not all of the types of businesses are defined in state law. So it really is important that if you want to address this issue, that you do so more thoroughly. Not that you have to adopt every word that's in here, but there are certainly, I would strongly encourage you to consider this longer version. And then if there's tweaks to it that you'd like to make, we certainly can discuss that. But the reality is, I think starting in 2025, end of the first quarter, this is going to be a very active time when businesses are going to be established. And if you're not set up and ready for them, of course, as you know, they're in, and then they're not conforming, and you can't touch them. They get to continue to operate. So it'll be important that you do your best. Not that there won't be a learning curve on this. There certainly will be. But I think it is important to try to address. And this does, and I know based on some of the conversations, at least that I've gleaned from the board in the past, is that you're interested in having a more, taking advantage of the limited regulatory authority that you do have to try to put some parameters around this. And so this does get at things like public use that is not regulated in the state. It says, well, it's not that it's not regulated, but that's one of the things you can regulate, and some of these other issues. So we're trying to, this ordinance does both, push to the boundaries of what you can do, including the lower potency hemp edibles, which frankly aren't specifically addressed in zoning, otherwise in the state regulations. But it also, some of this language does reflect just what's in the statute, just to help explain things a little bit, like you can't have drive-through sales and things like that, vending machine sales. Now, you could look at the statute and figure that out, but I thought it would be important to bring some of that forward so people reading this understand, all right, the drive-through idea isn't at play,
Right.
for example.
Yeah, there was, I recall, somebody made a comment, it might be a good idea to adopt this and then make amendments 4 or 5 or 6 months down the road if we run into a situation that we don't really have covered here. So,
That really does seem prudent, because it seems like, A, time is of the essence. B, this is a pretty thorough, regulatory document, which is good. I appreciate all that help and that work. And C, we can, if we need to, tweak it down the road and amend it. But it's important to get something in place now before the end of the year so that you don't have some non-conforming use grandfathered in.
and this did seem as restrictive as we might be able to get away with. For instance, Lakeland Shores, they have drive-through cannabis shop there, and this one doesn't allow it.
They have one now, or their ordinance allows it?
They have one now.
Oh, they have one now? Okay.
Yeah, it's in the old First Bank building.
So people can just go there if they want.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fine. We could put up a sign saying, go down to Lakeland Shores.
Okay, well,
That would be really funny.
yes.
Like, keep going.
Yeah,
I think it's great having reviewed it thoroughly with the planning commission and outside. So.
Oh, good. Okay, good. Now, another thing I just want to maybe just quickly cover with council, and that is, we, I think the point is, comment's been made, Dell, I think, made the comment, and I think maybe you did too, that this is about as restrictive as we can be. In other words, we can't say, under state law, as I understand it, we can't say there will be no marijuana businesses in our township. That's our zoning. We can't do that, right?
Mr. Chair and Board, that's correct. The law specifically says you cannot prohibit these businesses.
So all you can do, you have to allow them, but you can put parameters around it, and that's what this does.
Right, and specifically, the language says, except as provided, there's one exception. The local unit of government may not prohibit the establishment or operation of a cannabis business or hemp business licensed under this chapter.
Okay.
But you can do things like put the buffer zones in, because the statute specifically says you can do that. And these are, what you have before you uses the largest distance that's allowed under the statute. Some communities are dialing that back a little bit, others aren't, so.
Right, and I mean, I think that some of those buffer zones are none too protective. In other words, what is it, 1,000 feet or something from a school? Now, that's walking distance, easy peasy. I mean, that's not really, as protective as potentially it could be, but that's as much as we can do, because that's the statute says you can't restrict it beyond that.
when it comes to schools, we did some homeschooling. And so I was curious whether that would qualify as a school. Because I'm sure there are a number of people in the township that homeschool. But that only is qualified if you have to report to the state what your curriculum is. And under the homeschooling regulations that we were operating under, we didn't have to report to the state because we had a college degree. And when you had a college degree, you didn't have to prove that you were knowledgeable.
So you wouldn't qualify as a school then?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, well,
Now, that was a few years back, so it may have changed.
we have a couple of schools in the township, don't we? We've got the Montessori School, and we've got Oakland Junior High, or whatever.
Well,
middle school. Well, the children's farm too, yeah. I wonder if that qualifies. But that's nowhere near an HCB district anyway, I suppose, but, okay, well, this looks very good to me, but, what would our next steps be? Would we, I suppose maybe we could make a motion to, set this on for a public hearing and adoption potentially in December? Well, I'll make that motion and I'll look for a second from somebody.
I'll second.
Okay. And now we can have discussion. Any discussion on this? From anybody? Okay, I think we all agree it seems like a good idea and time is of the essence, so
Did you read through it?
I did. I've read through it.
Was everyone- I mean, John, did you read through that ordinance?
Not at all.
Is it important as to evaluate?
I think it's prudent and I didn't see anything in here that troubled me.
Right, no, I agree. It's just every community is kind of taking in a different direction, so we just want to make sure, read it and make sure that's what we want to do here. Great job on that.
Yeah, I appreciate all the work you put in.
Yeah.
Trying.
Yeah, the good thing is that we are not the first exit off the interstate. Lakeland Shores is. So,
And with the help of a big billboard.
yeah,
Hey, I know a guy.
Yeah. Okay, so, all right, well, hearing no further discussion then, all those in favor of putting this on for a public hearing and directing the clerk to post that as a public hearing, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Okay, so we'll have a public hearing next month on this and potentially adopt it at that time. Thank you very much, Dale, for the work you
okay,
folks have
the
done.
other topic that we covered in our meeting was accessory structures. And last month you got to see the PowerPoint presentation and so forth. And we went back and we polished up our draft ordinance. And basically we suggest replacing the existing section 6.9 entirely with a brand new one. And most of it is carried over from the old ordinance, but it just made things cleaner and neater by redoing the whole thing. And the one main thing is on the first page, 6.9.2.2. We allow a one-story detached accessory structure with a floor area that does not exceed 200 square feet. That does not require a permit. That aligns with state laws. We used to have 150 square feet. And face it, people's lawn tractors take space. So, and then 6.9.3 had general performance standards, and we had various accessory structure limitations depending upon your lot size. And we changed that to read that the total foundation size of all accessory structures shall not exceed 3% of the parcel size. Now, this is a little more generous than we currently have in our fixed accessory structure specifications. And so, and frankly, people were looking for a little bit larger shed anyway for storing their boats and snowmobiles and whatnot. For instance, it used to be 2,500 square feet if you had a 2.5 acre lot. Well, 3% of that would be 3,267 square feet. So you get about 800 square feet more than you would have otherwise. And then it goes on up as you get a larger lot size. Also, the reference to lean-tos was removed. No more lean-tos. They were kind of an end around for not being able to have a large enough shed. People would put a lean-to on the side of their shed and then put a tarp over it, which looks, after 2 winters, it looks kind of bad. So we removed that. Then the other main thing was that 6.9.4, referring to the setbacks, front yard setback for accessory structures, and that would be allowed, providing that the design materials, exterior finish is compatible with the existing house. And not a shabby looking shed, in other words. And the applicant should submit details of the shed that they want to put up for the approval of the planning commission or the building inspector. Building inspector, if he has questions about it, he can say, well, you better go see the planning commission. So it's not on the building inspector. And all accessory structures are to be used for personal use only or agricultural use, no commercial use or commercial related storage. Those are the main points. There was some verbiage about hazardous buildings that was carried over. It just got put in a different place. That homeowners are required to keep their buildings in decent shape. And yeah, I know of one guy in our neighborhood that tore down a old garage that was in kind of bad shape. So he was doing the right thing, taking it down. So you guys didn't have to get involved at all. Any questions on that?
Well, I've got a few here. Kind of a small one first, and then some larger ones. This envisions a 5-day notice before a town board meeting, and the town board has to consider the request. What it says basically is that you can build an accessory structure closer to the street than your home, but you have to get town board approval to do it. And it doesn't say you go to the planning commission, it says you go to the town board, and it says you have to go to the town, you have to submit your request 5 days before the meeting. I mean, that's barely time to get it on the agenda, but it seems like kind of a tight timeline.
Well, you could ask them to set it for 10 or 12 or
You could, yeah, you could.
whatever time you want.
The larger question I have, though, is this. It's my understanding that over the last 12 years, we've had 12 variance requests, all of which have been granted, but that's an average of 1 per year. So it's not as if the workload of the variance requests is unduly burdensome or anything. And the other thing is this, I don't know, I mean, maybe I should direct this to Council Gilchrist, but can we really, tell people if they want to build a building that's allowed by ordinance, as this would be now, where it's allowed, can we tell them what color they need to paint it and what kind of siding they need to put on it and everything else? I mean, we can't tell them that when they want to build a house, but can we tell them that when they want to build an accessory structure?
Mr. Chair and Board, yes, you can. I mean, some larger cities have very detailed architectural standards that have to be complied with. Towns typically don't, but I see this sort of accessory structure has to match the house. That's fairly common in my experience.
Okay. So the way it is now, when people have to request a variance, they can only build it in front of their house if there's a hardship, not even a hardship, a practical difficulty. And if we deem it to be a practical difficulty, we can put parameters on that. Talk about screening, talk about other parameters and so forth. This also allows us to put parameters. I mean, what's really the practical, to use that word, difference between having folks submit a variance request and having them, submit this to the town board for, architectural review and approval and everything else. I mean, is this actually really a kind of a better way to go, you think, or is it better to just keep the control that we have when we consider a variance request?
So, Mr. Chair and Board, just to give a little background, so I came up with this language as somewhat of a compromise, because if you recall, of course, right now you're not supposed to place an accessory structure in front. That's why folks who want to do that have come through a variance process to request that. And as you know, and it takes time to go through that process. There's an application fee and all that. Yeah, there's a public hearing and et cetera. So if you recall, the initial proposal from the planning commission was just to remove all that and just to allow them as a matter of course. So I heard some resistance of that, or at least some questioning of that by the board. And so one of my other townships has this approach of coming in and getting permission. So at least they have to stand up and explain why. It's not just a matter of right. They have to, have some reasons why. And I've sat through several of those over the years, and it's usually, there's good reasons for it. There's a hill, there's a swamp, there's a valley, there's whatever. I can't fit this in the backyard or on the side. So this is really the only place. And usually there's a general, okay, that makes sense. But trying to create a process that doesn't take months, doesn't take a lot of money, doesn't take a public hearing, but still has that sort of explanation involved. So this was an attempt to do that in between. So it certainly is more efficient and easier for a property owner to go through it. It still involves board review. I did add this language about adding conditions to it because I know that was mentioned as something that you liked. The 5 days, I plucked that from the air. That could be 10 days. That certainly can be changed. But the point is, I have seen it where folks just show up during public comment and ask for this, and that's not good either because you're not prepared to think about it and what's going on. So I'm not sure, Mr. Chair, that I answered your question, but that was kind of my thought as to, you go from you can't do it to everyone can do it to at least you got to come in and ask permission.
Okay.
The draft that I have here says that materials, colors, et cetera, shall be similar or complementary. So it's not specifying colors.
No, but I guess the town board gets to specify
If they wanted to.
or approve or disapprove.
If you want to stick your head in the hornet's nest, yeah. I think if people are coming before you to get approval, they're going to make sure that they have something that's approvable,
Yeah.
And something that's going to look decent. Where the pain comes in with getting the variance is the back and forth between the first proposal. The planning commission looks at it, makes suggestions. They take it and they talk to their planner or builder or architect. They come back again. And it's just time consuming more than anything else. And then finally they come to town board, and then the town board has to schedule a public hearing. So by that time, you're 4 months down the road, and time is money.
Then I note that the standard, the board has to consider whether the proposed location is reasonable under the conditions found in the particular parcel. That's kind of the standard for approval or not approval. Is that problematic? Is that standard, definite enough that we can defend what we do, as far as approval or disapproval? Or doesn't it need to be definite? Do we just have that kind of discretion?
So, Mr. Chair and Board, what I was trying to get at there, that's not I don't believe that's in the language of the other town that I've kind of got this idea from. But of course, as you all know, you can't be arbitrary in your decision making. But the point of that was to give some sort of, it can't just be, what's the reason? Because I want it. There has to be some rationale as, because our general standard is you have to be even with or behind the house. So why do you need this in front and have some explanation for it? So my thinking is that obviously you would flesh it out in a denial as to why, but kind of putting people on notice that you have to have some reason to ask for this.
Okay. I've asked a lot of questions. Anybody else have any questions or discussion?
I think we can build houses with whatever we want, and I'm not a fan of over-regulating these structures. Like, we have so much regulation on accessory structures and nothing on residential, and people are building really nice things. So I would just lower the regulation.
You do what?
I mean, I don't think we need to. Everyone who's building garages in front of the house, they all look great. If people are building anything in West Lakeland at this point, it's great. So, or maybe there's one person that might build in maybe not our favorite color shed. But
Mhm. Okay. Anything else? All right, so I suppose what we should do then is to, somebody want to make a motion to,
I have more. Wait, I have one more thing I forgot to address. So under 6.9.3.2, there's with the 3% of the parcel size, areas covered by easements, right-of-ways, wetlands, floodplains, steep slopes over 25%. Poor Isaac, he's gonna have to do a lot of math to determine what 3% is, taking the lot size minus calculating the easement square footage and the right-of-way and the wetlands and floodplain. I don't know if it's practical to regulate that.
okay, surveyors they commonly will make that kind of an analysis of a lot. It's, in other words, that analysis is, I think, made commonly by surveyors. And so,
So then we were.
so our building inspector doesn't have to, make that calculation. That's done by a surveyor. The,
So then a survey would be required.
we probably could require it. Maybe we should. We're going to add something for it.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, I added that language. Again, the idea of 3%, we didn't want, my thinking is if you have a property that is, very steep, most of it's on the side of a hill or there's a lot of wetlands or highway goes across it, you don't want to add all that in and have this disproportionate amount of accessory structure being built on a property that really is a very small property as far as usable area. So I was trying to get at that. I mean, that it certainly is a practical point to raise about how do we determine that, but it is something that certainly can be determined.
Sure. This refers to buildable area, and it's just like, you can have a 2.5 acre lot, but you got to have 1 acre buildable.
Yeah.
To build on.
And there's some properties that are like 5 acres, but 4.5 are lake or something.
Yeah, right.
I just don't know if they're, how much it affects our township.
Actually, wetlands, floodplains, steep slopes, those would all still be covered by vegetation, like the rest of the lot. So those items could be left out. I could see leaving in rights of way and easements maybe. In fact, I checked on the easement in front of my lot this evening just to make sure I was okay. But I think the easements and rights of way ought to stay in there. That's my opinion, not the whole planning commission.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I do have a question too. If you look down to section 6.9.4, you'll see, so I had put this together based on the information that Planning Commission originally proposed. As I discussed, I modified it to some degree. And then after the Planning Commission reviewed it at its meeting, it had this language in here that it says as proposed by the Planning Commission.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure, frankly, what that was getting at, because in my view, this is already addressed in the non-conforming, that if you allow a property to be subdivided, and that means that now that an accessory structure on that property or one of the resulting parcels is no longer compliant, well, yes, that gets to continue. So I didn't see this being instructive or helpful, but I wanted to leave it in there in case, for the point of discussion, in case I was missing something, frankly. But I don't know why we're talking about the 5 acres unless it's the minimum lot size, and then the farmstead as of a particular date. I mean, the reality is, regardless of when the lot was created or whether it was a farmstead or not, if you allow it to be subdivided and a structure becomes non-conforming as a result of that, they get to keep it. So I didn't see this as getting anywhere, but I did certainly appreciate the hazardous building portion of that. So that's why I added this language, this possible alternative, making a point that if you allow an accessory structure to become a hazardous building, you can order that it be repaired or removed.
Sure. And I think this language about the January 1, 2001, and the, the existing farm site, that's in the statute, that's in our ordinance now, I think.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. And somebody just brought that over. Would you say that's right, Jill? I think that's in the ordinance right now. And I think what it says is, maybe what it says is that, you can subdivide, you can do a minor subdivision, but you can't go parcels less than 5 acres if you want to retain these non-conforming buildings. So it does kind of set a minimum lot size, maybe, if you want to keep the buildings, you want to keep the barn, and the outbuilding and the loafing shed and everything. You want to keep all that stuff. 5 acres is it can't be less than 5 acres that you do the minor subdivision to. But if you want to do 2.5 acre lots, then you're going to have to get rid of those old buildings. I think that's maybe what this means. I don't know. You tell me.
Well,
If it could have that meaning.
Mr. Chair, I kind of get that, but I think it would be troublesome if you say, we'll allow you to subdivide it, but you can tear down the 3 buildings.
I think that's what we do now, though. When the farmers subdivide, they have to keep their pole lines down, right?
I think they do, yeah.
Is that, okay, all right.
Well, I
I don't know if they,
don't-
and maybe
we should
it's
do
because of
that.
this, I don't know, but.
No, that's, Mr. Chair and Board, if that's existing, I didn't go back to the, current ordinance and see, I just saw that this was added. So if you're comfortable with that, that certainly can stay in. I just am pointing out that you could run into some issues with telling people they have to tear down the barns.
Yeah, I think we should take it. It seems arbitrary and outdated.
Okay, so you have some amendments you'd like to propose then? I take it?
Removing 6.9.4.2, but adopting the new wording with the hazardous buildings as proposed at 6.9.3.3.
Is that defined someplace, a hazardous building? Just curious. Do we define hazardous building somewhere in our ordinances, maybe?
Yes,
Yes.
We do.
it's defined, yes. And there's state law that allows you to order the removal of hazardous building. You can take action to authorize you to go on to remove it if necessary.
Okay, so do you want to make a motion concerning this?
To remove 6.9.4.2 and add in 6.9.3.3.
So, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think at this point, frankly, we can just get direction. Because this is still draft.
Okay.
So, if that's consensus of the board to remove that and go and to stay with the possible alternative language, there's obviously some cleanup here that has to happen. But I think back to your other point, so if you're comfortable with that, I certainly can make that change. If there's any controversy over it, then yes, submit it to a motion. But otherwise, I think, Mr. Chair, what you're looking at is similar to the other one. Are you ready for a hearing on this, or do you want to post, this one doesn't have the same time pressures as the other one. But you certainly could take a motion to schedule this for a hearing in December.
John, we haven't heard from you yet, so how do you feel about all this?
If you don't have in your ordinance exactly what you want, you can't enforce people to say, make the accessory structure match your house. I ran into that years ago, and then it becomes a legal battle.
So what do you think?
Are
you saying this
I
is-
sort of agree a bit with what Rachel said about why have everything match the house. Some people can't afford to do that, and they like to put some of their things under a roof and to protect them.
And we aren't requiring that.
Pardon?
This doesn't require that.
Okay.
It just has to be,
It has to be similar to or complementary of.
yeah, yes.
Yeah.
So that could vary, that
I
could be,
tried to say like can't be ugly.
yes.
Just kidding.
So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to point out, and I think this was at the direction of the Planning Commission, that, unless I'm missing it, that only applies to those accessory structures that are in front of the house.
That's right.
Right.
That's true.
So it's not the other ones. So the idea is that one is going to be visible more than others perhaps, and that one should then be matching. So I think that was the thought.
Does make sense.
Yeah, you can build an ugly shed behind your house. But in the public view, it's probably a good idea to have a good face.
I think so too. Okay. Well, let's see. So you're thinking, so I don't know if it's really, well, I mean, I don't know. You're gonna go back and make some tweaks. Well, and maybe you just want to do it based on the sense of the board. And so it sounds like the sense of the board is that 6.9.4.2 can be replaced with this suggested 6.9.3.3. I'm fine with that. Let's see, what other tweaks did we want to make? Well, one tweak I would like to make, instead of the 5 days before the town board meeting, I'd like it to be 30. I don't think 30 days is too long to wait, I mean, and at least it gives the board an opportunity to, think about it. The other question I have is, this is the sort of thing that the planning commission usually looks at, but folks think that it should be the board hashing this out, right?
Because then we're
Not
just
the planning.
adding another step.
Okay.
The timeline.
How do people feel about giving us some notice, 30 days instead of 5? What do you think? Think 5's enough? I don't want to, no. I don't think so.
30 days is kind of a lot, though. Maybe like 2 weeks. So if you're still, figuring out your design, then you have to, you finalize the design, you gotta wait a month.
Okay, well, what do you think it should be?
What are they submitting? They're just submitting
You okay with 5?
details demonstrating compliance with this section when applying for the building. Where are they submitting to the board then?
2
An
weeks.
explanation of
Explain,
the
just-
reasons, the proposed location, including the drawing showing the proposed location of the parcel.
Oh, yeah. 21 days? 2 weeks? Or what are we gonna do at that time? Because realistically, we're jamming the agenda together the week before. And we're not looking at it the week before, or the day of. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, sometimes we don't look at it until the week before, but sometimes we do look at things a couple of weeks before the board meeting. Some of us do, I suppose, If we got nothing going on, we might do that. And we might want a little bit of time to think about it, just so it's not kind of at the last minute. 21 days is fine with me if you'd be comfortable with that. But I just don't think it should come up at the last minute. What else? Any other tweaks that we think need to be made? There was a business about parcel size. How much of that do people think we should strike from the parcel size? Or maybe it's kind of buildable area is really what we're talking about, the buildable area computation. Got any thoughts, John? Rachel, any thoughts on that? Or you want to just dispense with the whole thing, or just leave it?
it's fine. I don't know if, I could see it being problematic if there's a little bit of floodplain over here and there's some slope and we don't really know how steep it is and we don't have like a new, I don't want people to have to go and pay for a new survey, especially if they've, 10-acre lots. That's that'd be very expensive. So I don't know, it's 3% of whatever's the parcel size on the county map would be fine.
Excuse me, does the watershed district have been seen? Because I got in trouble when I took down the barn and rebuilt it on my property. The watershed district came and I had to make up a plan before my water was gonna go.
Yeah,
And I
that's
have 4.5 acres.
that's for if you're adding more than 5,000 square foot of impervious surface.
Mhm.
So that's a separate regulatory agency.
So the question, just for the folks watching, by the way, could you state your name and address for the record, please, since you had a comment? Tim Hansen? Okay.
2097 Quant Avenue.
2097 Quant, thank you. So for the purpose of, benefit of folks watching this, who can't hear that because it's not on a microphone, the gentleman was asking about the input that the watershed district may have on these buildings. And the point was made that when you are adding impervious surface, whether it's because of shingles on a roof or pavement on a driveway or what have you, in excess of, how much was it again?
5,000.
5,000 square feet? Yeah.
Maybe 6,000.
Yeah, the watershed district may have something to say, but obviously we can't address that one way or the other, I don't think, in this ordinance. We can't sort of tell the watershed district how to do their business. That's just a separate
No.
agency, a separate entity that has to be
So they
complied with.
don't, you don't look at what their restrictions are, they look at it.
It'll trigger that when you apply for building permit, that triggers a permit with the watershed. There's a bunch of different things that could trigger that. Then the watershed will review it as well. So that'll trigger a separate review. Yeah. Which that'll come up a lot more if people are building larger areas of impervious surface. So.
True enough, yeah. Okay, so your recommendation then, Rachel, is to just delete the part of 6.9.3.2 that deals with the air, that exempts from the calculation of the parcel size areas that are covered by easements, right-of-ways, wetlands, floodplains, et cetera, steep slopes and all that kind of thing, right? Just get rid of that.
Yeah,
part of-
possibly. I mean, I'd be fine with that. You could also look at if there's a large percentage of parcels that would be affected. Like if there's a lot of 2.5 acre lots that are on a steep slope. I just haven't looked at
Well,
that, the township
Yeah, it's probably true.
with these.
And the other thing is, I mean, in order to determine buildable area, which this essentially is the same thing as saying buildable area, in order to determine that, you probably need, a surveyor or some other competent engineer or somebody to comment on that, because
Right. You can't leave that up to I, our building inspector.
no, nor can you leave it up to the board. Because, we,
I think it'd be simpler just to eliminate that. Otherwise, we will have to require surveys possibly, or Isaac has to get his calculator out, and then it just could be opening up for more, well, they're
think
on
it-
a slope and on
I
there.
think it would
did
require a
this.
survey, basically.
Yeah.
I think it would. Okay, so with those modifications then, should we just set it on for public hearing? With the anticipation that we'll get a new draft that'll make all those updates? I suppose we could do that. You want to make a motion of that effect?
So we did 21 days instead of 5. for
Right.
that. You want me to review all the changes?
No, right.
Okay, got it?
I
Okay.
don't think we need to.
Are we setting it for a public hearing next month with the revisions we discussed?
Is that your motion?
I will move that if that's what we
Alright.
agreed
Do you have
to.
a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we set this ordinance change on for a public hearing next month. Once with the changes that we've discussed here, the council will draft that. Any discussion? Any further discussion on that?
I want to know what John thinks from just what your opinion of this, because this changes how we're regulating what our township's going to look like. So it's an important issue. So do you have opinions on outbuildings or what things should look like, or if we should restrict what houses people can build or sizes, or what's your thought on here? We haven't heard from you.
I guess I had 20 acres and it got cut down to 12 and a half. Now I have more buildings than what's allowed. I use those buildings, and it seems like some of these things put hardships on some people. Matt had trouble with his garage, trying to get his stuff in there. I think each case is different, but as far as a regular homeowner that wants put a structure up. That's a whole lot easier.
You're fine with it.
You know, I'll just make this comment though. You have to strike kind of a delicate balance between people, being able to do what they want with their property, and I like that idea. I do. But on the other hand, folks don't want to live across the street from somebody that's doing something kind of disruptive or creating something that kind of changes the character of the neighborhood and so forth. So, there's really, there are multiple parties whose interests you have to consider when you're considering kind of, opening the door to a little bit less orderly development. And, so that's kind of the fine line that we walk here, The landowner is certainly a party in interest, no question about it. But so are the landowner's neighbors. Their parties in interest too. And their interests may be offended or diminished, by what a landowner decides to do in front of their home. So I think we should proceed with caution, but, I'm willing to, go ahead. with
And
the rest of the board.
keep in mind too, that this isn't preventing somebody that wants to really put up some kind of Taj garage from coming and getting a variance. Somebody could still do that, and if it's going beyond what's in the ordinances, they can still do that. But it would be a kind of a rare occasion, I think.
They would have to prove practical difficulty for
Yeah.
variance.
Yeah, they would.
I would like to just ask,
Somebody wants, would you come up to the podium and state your name and address for the record, and so you can be on the mic and on camera and so forth, since we're broadcasting this now. Yeah.
My name is Tamara Morrissey, 2465 Periwinkle Avenue. If I heard correctly earlier, they were talking about that these out structures cannot be used for any commercial purposes. And I'm wondering if that means that, say my neighbor has a truck that he puts a plow on and he hires himself out to plow some people's driveways. Does that mean he can't store his truck in his detached garage anymore? I'm just wondering about the commercial piece of it, how far that goes, because if the neighbor kid has a lawnmower, but then in the summer he goes and hires himself out, can he not store his lawnmower in his shed? I know we're talking about like commercial things where people are having a lot of traffic and everything, but if we're gonna have some limitations on commercial use for what's inside your secondary storage or garage or whatever, I think we want to be sure that that's defined in such a way that we're not making it too restrictive for people. That's my question and my concern. I don't know if I asked it wrong or I should just go sit down and listen to you.
Yeah, so you're questioning whether there should be a prohibition on commercial use of these accessory structures.
I thought you said there was.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did.
well, we're redoing the ordinance, so this is a good time to rethink it if we don't like it.
but isn't that addressed, Del, with the interim use and conditional use permits for home-based businesses?
I believe so.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
That's part of that.
Yeah.
The 12-year-old ones were no neighbors along with that.
No, we're talking about more like not just driving in and parking and then going in the house and going to bed for the night, but we're talking about changing oil for lots of people and or fixing up cars or something like that as a commercial business. That's what I consider to be commercial.
Yeah, and that's a little bit outside of scope, but council, it sounds like you may have a comment.
Yeah, the existing ordinance already prohibits that.
Prohibits
So
it already.
that's already in there. And to the point, no, I mean, the reality is if the use of the structure is consistent with the residential use of it, whether it's your personal truck that you only use to plow your driveway or you go plow other driveways, as long as you're not operating it out of it, if the character of the use is not different than any other residential use of an accessory structure, that's not going to raise. But if you start hanging a sign on it, open for business, and you have customers coming here, that sort of thing, that's when it's going to cause a problem.
Right, I mean, I suppose, yeah, maybe a finer point for another discussion about what constitutes a commercial business and so forth. Council, I'll just ask this question. Do you think that the prohibition against commercial use for an accessory structure, does that rule out the possibility that we might allow a home business at that residence that would, under an interim use permit or something that would, use that shed?
Mr. Chair, if you're expressly allowing it as part of a permit like that.
That
that's
overrides
within
this
another-
prohibition?
Yeah, I mean, there's a general prohibition against it, but you have other language that may
Sure.
allow it. So I don't see that as a problem.
Okay, so we're not ruling that out, okay. All right. All right, well, it's all good discussion. I think we're probably ready for a vote as to whether or not we want to put this to a public hearing at our December meeting, unless there's any further discussion. Okay. All those,
Second that motion?
Yes.
yeah, I think, you seconded it. Yeah. Yes. Would you like to step up to the mic, state your name and address for the record, please?
Gary Heiser, 290 Neal Avenue. If, regarding the commercial part of it, if it's already in a separate part of our regulations, aren't we stating it twice then? If we have it in
What do you
there.
mean a separate part of the regulation?
If you're saying it's not commercial property, it can't be used for commercial, okay? But you already have it in there, in a different part of our,
No, it's not, I don't think it's in a
Regulatory?
different part. I think they're restating the entire ordinance. The entire ordinance that we have now, which states that you can't use it for commercial use, is being replaced by this new ordinance, which also states that you can't.
okay,
use
it
for
doesn't
commercial
state it
use.
somewhere else in our ordinances already. That's what I thought you were getting.
I don't know, maybe it does.
No, it's already, so, yeah, so basically they're taking this existing section, throwing it out and creating this new one that'll go in its place.
Okay.
But a lot of that language from the old one is being brought forward into the new one, and that's one of those provisions that is being brought forward. So it's just replacing the existing language saying the same thing.
Okay. And regarding the striking out all those exceptions that Dana was talking about, I agree with that. I think that simplifies things a
Right,
lot.
and you will certainly have the opportunity to make a public comment on that very thing next month when we have our public hearing. Here, you can talk about it then.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. All right. Anything, if hearing nothing further, and you did second it, I think, right, John? You seconded that one. Then all in favor of putting it on for public hearing at our December meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, so we'll put that on, we'll have 2 public hearings next month. Good. Okay. Let's see, what's next?
And the only other thing I have to report is that the township has given their input to American Legal Publishing regarding the codification process. And we are waiting to hear back from them. I think they have 60 days or something like that, and it's not 60 days yet, so it has not dropped through the cracks yet.
All right. Thank you very much.
And our meeting ran late last month. We adjourned the meeting at 9:04. So
You're bragging,
we're
Joe.
slipping.
Yeah. Well, I hope that doesn't happen again.
No,
Okay, thank you, Dell. Thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, Don and Betsy Vance, lot line adjustment between parcels.
Pretty simple. We found out that my brother-in-law's septic field, drain field, and his chicken coop are over the property line. So we need to shift it 50 feet so he's within the setbacks.
So you're giving them 50 feet?
I'm giving my sister 50 feet behind.
Okay.
Generous.
Hmm?
Generous.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. What do we have to do with this? Do we have to, what action do we need to take? Can we just approve it, or we must have to, do we have to have a public hearing or something, council, for this?
It doesn't require a public hearing,
It does not?
No.
Okay. So we can just talk about it and approve it.
unless you want to refer it to the planning commission for some reason, but it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. Trying to figure out which, okay, so we're looking at the survey here. Is that on, oh, that can't be put up there, can it? Or can it?
Yeah, I can,
if I go back
here.
Okay. All right.
I wish I could do it for you.
Yes.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So apologize, I hadn't reviewed this before, but it's correct that it doesn't look like it goes to a hearing, but it is supposed to be supported by a survey. It's supposed to go to me for review and a recommendation to the town board. So there is some process involved.
Okay.
Looks like we have a survey.
Yeah, the reason my husband and brother-in-law aren't here tonight is because we thought it would carry over till December. So,
Yeah.
so it's,
So all those things that council said should happen can happen.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's see, the north lot line,
you've got the lot on the corner.
yep,
My sister and brother-in-law have the one that's much longer. It's just shifting that line over.
your north line, the
Yeah,
entire
50
north
feet.
line goes south 50 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Puts
and
a
it does-
jog in their property line, but there's no way around that.
What's that?
It does create
A jog in their property
their
line.
property line.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's- But they're got nothing to complain about.
They need their drain field.
They need a drain field. Okay, and there are no setbacks,
No.
building setbacks or anything that'll be affected by this. It just is. Doesn't make any
It's
difference.
their chicken coop within the setbacks. They don't have to move their chicken coop.
Right, right, okay. This is interesting. I just noticed this. This is neither here nor there, but I'm gonna just comment on it anyway. The surveyor used some archaic road numbering here. He's got 10th Street North listed as County Road 70, which it used to be many years ago, 25, 30 years ago. That was County Road 70. Then they changed it to County Road 10. And the surveyor also has Oak Green Avenue listed as County Road 69.
I remember
Which
being
was-
69.
Huh?
I remember being 69.
I remember that too.
We should bring that back.
They should bring it back. And they changed it, I don't know how long ago, maybe 40 years ago or something. But I just thought it was interesting that the surveyor, this is a new survey, but he's
It's
got
a brand new
those.
survey. It's Cornerstone. They do surveys in the township all the time.
Yeah, he does, right. So it's just kind of interesting. It's not fatal to the application. It's just interesting.
What are the lot sizes of the two lots?
It's on the survey.
It's on the survey.
That's too small.
It's
but-
moving 0.25 acres or something like that. It's moving like 0.25 acres, half acre or less.
And the total lot size of each lot.
They have just under 5. We have
Oh.
over that,
So
under
you've got
6.
more than.
We've got more than enough. Yeah, both lots are more than minimum size.
Okay. Good question.
Mr. Chair? Can I just
Yes.
ask a question? So am I seeing this right, that the line is moving south,
Yes,
basically? Okay.
yes.
All right.
Yeah, it's just shifting that line 50 feet south.
So, Mr. Chair, one of the things that come up sometimes with this, it looks like there's some drainage and utility easements along the existing line.
Okay.
Not that you're, I suspect, using them right now, but sometimes what comes up is, do you want to require dedication of new easements? I don't think it's a big thing myself personally, but I just want to raise that. The other thing to keep in mind for your family that owns that northern lot, they have to be careful then if they do anything towards that, because there's easements still across
Right.
their property.
Right.
So,
It's where the drain field's at. They're not going to do anything.
okay.
So, Council, let me try to understand what you're saying. You're saying, do we want to require that the easement locations be moved to reflect the new lot lines? Or that some new easement be dedicated that isn't dedicated?
Yeah, so, Mr. Chair, you see this in cities where they're in, platted corner to corner, and there's these drainage and utility easements on either side of the current property line. Of course, when that property line moves, the easements don't move, they're still there.
Right.
So the easements are going to be across that property. But you're not going to have any boundary line easements then for that moved line. So sometimes what's required is that, okay, now you have to dedicate new easements as part of that. I'm not suggesting that in this case, but I just wanted to raise that you're losing your easements along that line.
Losing the easements, or just that the location is no longer aligns with the lot lines?
That.
Okay. And so really, maybe it is in the interest of, or would be, maybe the property owner, the northerly property owner would be interested in doing that for their own purposes, relocating those easements.
Yeah. You know, and again, Mr. Chair,
I don't think he has a preference.
yeah, and that's usually easily done when this is a plat, you know, where it's being platted. But with a boundary line adjustment like that, there would have to be a separate easement issue, you know, drawn up
Right.
to dedicate those, which is not that hard. But again, if drainage is a big issue or in concern in that area, then maybe. If it's not, I don't think you have to worry that much about it, but I just wanted to raise it.
Okay. So Betsy, I suppose maybe just something to bring to the attention of,
I'll bring it up to my brother-in-law. I don't
Yeah.
think they have an issue that easement is apparently on their property.
well, okay, so we'll just leave it up to them.
That-
Do we really need an easement between the properties?
I don't know why, you know, who knows? I mean, yeah, there probably was a reason for it. I don't know what
I
it
think
was.
they just always did.
They just did it, whether they
Okay.
needed it or not.
All right, so we'll just leave it alone. And so I would say then let's go ahead and I suppose we need a motion to refer this to council then for review and so forth.
And yes, and then bring it back at your next meeting for review and for action.
All right, so I'll make that motion that we have council review the application, and we'll bring it back for a decision at our next meeting. And you're saying it does not require a public hearing, correct?
In my quick read, Mr. Chair, I did not see that, but again, it's supposed to come. Normally what I do, I would write a resolution approving it.
Okay,
So that's what I'll do between now and your next meeting.
okay, perfect. Thank you. So I'll move that we do that. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Okay, so we'll do that. Thank you, Betsy, for bringing that to our attention. Okay.
Nothing's chickens.
It's chickens, thank me, right. Okay. All right, so the next item would be the professional services agreement for information technology services with Andrew Miskey. So do you want to say a couple words about the proposal here? And I'll take a look at it here.
What would you like to know?
Well, okay, no, it's in our packet, right?
It is.
It's in here somewhere. Gotta find it. Oh, here it is, okay. Okay, well, so tell me, I guess, what services do you propose to provide, and sort of what's your, you know, qualification and so forth?
Sure. As for qualifications, I have a couple of years of formal education and about 15 years of work experience in home office / small office environments. As for what I'd be doing for the township, it describes ensuring the computers and systems are set up and operating and securing data primarily. So I've already done some of that on a volunteer basis with the township, doing work with Carrie, and one paid job as well. So primarily just making sure that everything is working the way it should be. Kind of a jack of all trades IT type person.
Okay, we're adding technology exponentially. We've
Yes.
got all these laptops, and now we've got all this YouTube broadcast
Yep.
stuff. We're gonna have security cameras.
Yep.
We're gonna have.
You're on the cusp of adding a whole bunch of stuff that's
Right.
going to need someone to take care of it. So that would be me.
Okay, you're comfortable with all
Sure.
those kinds of systems?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have any questions? Andrew?
What's the background of, I mean, with this request? Were we looking for an IT person still, or this is the first I've heard of any of it.
Yeah, maybe Carrie can fill in a little bit of information for us here.
Yes, IT has become, it fluid these days, and there's a lot of changes with technology, and frankly, I just don't have the time to set up laptops, troubleshoot laptop issues, and it's becoming more of a demand, and a part-time demand, and so a lot of IT folks that, I reached out to the clerks, the city clerks, the town clerks in Washington County. And a lot of them pay, they have different pay structures. And we're different because we need very little IT support. And so Andrew, when we worked with him 3 times, I was pleased with, his work ethic and what he's able to solve with some of the issues that we've had. And his, his pay structure seemed to fit well with how we conduct business.
Okay, and yeah, I mean, and I suppose really, we just mentioned this, but I mean, we're adding more IT kind of layers, I guess, here at the township as time goes on. So it becomes more important to have somebody who's kind of our IT go-to person rather than maybe going to the, I don't know, what, the Geek Squad or something when we, when we have an issue with a laptop or something. And I do like the idea of having somebody local in the township. You live in the township.
Yep, just on the street.
Yep.
I like that too.
I like that.
And then Carrie doesn't have to go to Geek Squad.
Don't have to go to the Geek
Yeah.
Squad?
Right, I've gone to the Geek Squad, I've driven to another IT person in Prescott that we've used in the past, so this is a real treat.
And each additional layer of IT that you add kind of complicates everything else that you've already set up, so.
Sure. We had a heck of a time getting the camera to get started here.
Yeah.
Until Betsy figured it out.
No, Dave told me I didn't know.
Oh, Dave. Dave figured it out.
And it's great when that's just the only problem. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it'll get much worse.
I'm counting on
We're-
it. No.
If something, how does it go? Something can go wrong at will or something. I shouldn't say that.
It's Murphy's Law.
Please don't.
No, please don't say that. So anyway, okay, so so what I'll do is I'll make a motion and then we can have further discussion, but I'll move that we accept this. Although I should ask council, is this pursuant to our approved format for contracting?
So, Mr. Chair, yes, I put this together.
Okay.
And then there were some back and forth on it, although I did notice a typo. Needs to be need under the last word in number 1. But other than that, it's the most simplified professional services agreement that I have.
Okay. Well, I will move that we enter into this agreement and commence using Andrew Miskey for our IT needs. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Let's have further discussion. John, do you have any thoughts, questions, things you'd like to ask Mr. Miskey, et cetera?
Do you do home calls?
I could, yes.
What's your phone number?
I'll give that to you in a less public setting.
Sure, sure.
That's fine.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay. Anything else? Rachel? anything?
No, when we start budgeting for next year, we should set aside funds for IT service.
I think that's a good idea. Do we already do that? Do we have an account or a line item for? Okay, so we should do that. You're right. Absolutely. Okay, well, all those in favor then of entering into this contract, I should mention the rate is $30 an hour for the work. And I don't think there isn't a retainer, is there? It's just a
No,
straight,
there's not.
fee basis. Okay, $30 an hour. So all those in favor of entering into this contract, I guess we need a roll call. But
Chairman Musburger,
aye.
Supervisor Dana,
Aye.
Supervisor Bueller.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to having all this all this equipment working flawlessly.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. All right, thank you very much. Okay, next item will be from Chad, Focus Engineering, our township engineer. And you're going to present the WSB proposal to assist us with MS4 compliance, something we can certainly use.
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for having me. Don't have a formal presentation tonight, but wanted to get in front of you with the proposal received from WSB for services to support West Lakeland Township and their SWIP responsibilities and MS4 compliance. My counterpart, Kara Guerin, presented to the board earlier this year during the annual meeting, and this proposal kind of was a result of that discussion the board had. So what WSB did is kind of gave us a la carte proposal, I'll call it, where they identified a bunch of different services that are required as a part of MS4 compliance, and then gave the township an option to kind of select based on the categories they'd be interested in, potentially using them for services and support in MS4 compliance. So we reviewed the proposal with the kind of two new people at WSB, the people we'd previously been working with taking other jobs. But WSB's previously supported the township in this program with inspections historically, and seems like their new staff would be a good fit. Of the tasks identified, if you went kind of all in with what's been laid out, they provided a fee of $18,100. At a minimum, we were recommending that the township enter into a contract with them just to complete task 1, which is administrative activities, and task 5, which is inspections, and that total fee would be $8,100. WSB would be able to start work effective upon signature of their proposal and get inspections underway for the fourth quarter yet in 2024. And we would be meeting with them as part of the administrative tasks outlined in the proposal to kind of get a game plan together and how to address the overall compliance with the MS4 program and identify duties and responsibilities and kind of open dialogue with the board and them on board to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to be doing moving forward. So I don't know if there are any questions from any board members regarding the proposal received or information presented.
I have questions.
Mhm.
For the GIS mapping, is that something that, like municipality of our size with the amount of infrastructure we have, is that appropriate or is it for overkill? What's your opinion?
My opinion is flushing that out in kind of task 1. I don't know that I'm sitting here feeling like that's a good investment for the board at this time.
Okay.
Specifically, we just renewed, there's a lot of information in Trimble Connect that the township has a subscription for from previous years of data being collected. And we want to, with the license renewed, we can now kind of log in and get that information extracted out of it. I think we want to start there before necessarily committing to full-on mapping and have that dialogue with you.
Thank you.
Good question. Some of this, though, we're kind of behind on, I think, right now, correct? So it's probably time is of the essence. That's what you're talking about, starting it kind of immediately.
Yeah, I think getting kind of organized with the new-ish board in this category with task 1 and getting inspections back underway with task 5 are pretty critical items to start with. Annual public meeting is something you've had in 2024 technically, so that would be kind of setting up for 2025. I don't think you need to authorize that right now. Staff training would probably be better flushed out after organizing an org chart and figuring out who's going to be responsible for what. So some of that stuff can, just come at a later date, but where we sit today and with the feedback provided, I think task 1 and 5 would be a good starting point to start tackling some of these and making sure we're in compliance with our permit.
Okay. Now, let's see, I made a note here by task 5.4, visual construction site inspection. Datify, I'm not sure what that is. That's some kind of proprietary thing, I guess, that they do, but visual construction site inspection. So I guess they're looking at, water discharge, runoff from construction sites and so on. So my question was, does our building inspector already do this as part of the whole, review of the construction projects that are approved under a building permit? Or don't we do this now, and do we need to do it?
So there was some back and forth with the building official just kind of regarding this area, because it is a little bit of a, I'll call it a gray when it comes between a building and kind of your MS4 program umbrella. Where if a township representative sees active erosion on site, on any construction site that's maybe going towards a natural water body wetland, under the MS4 program, we are supposed to cite and record that citation and, requirement to address it. Under the building permit category, they're operating under a state permit potentially that kind of is the responsibility of their site manager to be in compliance at all times. So working with Isaac to kind of better understand how he's documenting that or not documenting it is kind of a part of this process as well. Larger construction sites where it's maybe more of a development or road construction or something of that nature, even the future street improvement project. Those are sites that engineering typically is on site more often, and we're documenting that as a part of site inspections or making it a requirement of the developer to have a third party do those inspections and fill out their SWIFT inspection reports. And so that kind of gets handled on those larger projects, but it does get a little bit gray with the individual site building permits.
So how do we ascertain then whether we really need this service, which, as I understand it, is not already accounted for in the cost estimate that this document talks about?
Correct. So as a part of kind of task one, it's them understanding what's actively happening within the township limits before they would advise on where this service could be useful to the township in the future or not, which is why it's specifically kind of written out. It's just an FYI that we would be kind of having a more direct conversation around it in that administrative activities portion, to see if, who is responsible for it today, and if it's no one, who should it be, and if it's still no one, then maybe that's a service that they would offer.
Okay.
And that fee would be defined at a later date. So I would be coordinating on behalf of the township, but WSB would be doing the actual work. So engaging with the board representative, I think it has the township supervisor, which I believe is the road supervisor currently with that duty. So we'd be working with John to organize the meeting with WSB and making sure that all kind of the roles were defined.
Okay, so are we, so we're being asked to kind of pick which of these cafeteria items we want services from WSB, like right now? I suppose we are, because you got to get started on it right away, don't you? Yeah.
If we want to start inspections right away, it's an opportunity to do so. If the board would like some more information, to sit on it and make a decision at a later date, then we'll just shift that timing. We'll say that when it comes to outfall inspection for your culverts and stuff, it's better without snow on the ground. That doesn't prohibit pond inspections and other inspections from occurring in the winter, when that can happen.
It might not snow till January.
That's correct.
Like last year.
Right.
Yeah. Well, okay. Has anybody got any thoughts about which of these cafeteria items we ought to pursue? John, you're kind of the MS4 guy. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have two thoughts. What would you suggest? So we start with,
I would say task 1 and task 5 would be what I would recommend the town board consider starting at a minimum, and then using those to not only start inspections, but to better understand roles and responsibilities and how to, what the township's going to take on or not take on themselves to further assist.
the beauty of Isaac doing the inspections, which he has been doing, is after a rain event, it's got to be inspected. And when you got a lot of rain events coming after one after another, he's already inspecting the homes. And it's not like you have to send somebody 20 miles out to check these things, and then you've got a lot of extra mileage charges. So having him do that is a savings for the township, which he has been doing.
So yeah, that's kind of what I thought. That I thought that he had been doing that, at least with respect to construction sites where he's issued a building permit.
Right.
You know, as Chad says, though, like for example, maybe our road project next summer or something, that'll be a construction project that he wouldn't be involved in, looking at the storm runoff. But it sounds like Focus would kind of take care of that for us. So we might not really need 5.4, but as I understand what you're saying, Chad, is that part of the kind of conversations that happened as a result of and under the auspices of task 1 would be getting input as to whether there's anything that's not already covered for which we need services under 5.4.
Yeah, I think that's correct. Authorization of task 5 tonight would be really just 5.1, 2, and 3, which are areas outside of what your building official is looking for. It's the
Right.
It's the culvert outfalls, it's the ponds, it's township facilities that are involved in the plan that require these types of inspections. So it would just be an opportunity to have dialogue and make sure that there's not an assumption of somebody's doing something and finding out they're not when it comes time to do an audit.
Sure.
How is that data being collected? So
Right.
it's available for an audit and that type of thing.
Okay. And then you're saying task 2, when would we consider doing that? Or what would the reason be to consider doing it, and when would we consider doing it?
So I think task 2 becomes if the township says, yeah, these categories, and I'm just going to make up a couple of categories within your permit. We, the township, as the, road superintendent or otherwise, want to be responsible for completing these areas and doing the inspections or writing the reports or documenting it. It would just be formal training for that individual if they've never done it before.
Mm-hmm.
It would be training them on, okay, you've selected, you want to keep doing these yourselves. Here's an opportunity for some training so that you're setting whoever up for success.
Okay. But I think to begin with, it seems like we probably want WSB to get caught up on these so that we don't fall too far behind on our inspections. That's task 5.
Yep, I would agree.
Any other questions about this discussion?
I propose that in task 1, though, that quarterly administrative meetings be the entire board is included, which would require a open meeting, a notice meeting.
I think that's a good idea.
And I think there's some general confusion with what's a SWIP permit, which is I think it's construction related state general permit versus our MS4 permit, which is our responsibility for our stormwater infrastructure, and they're somewhat related, but not the same thing.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes. I think we are aligned. I don't know with everyone else.
But I'm
is
still
entirely
not,
aligned.
I'm still not caught up. I
Okay.
don't know what you guys are talking
I
about.
just want to be clear, just because we're doing SWIP inspections on an active construction site does not mean we are MS4 compliant by any means.
Okay, so
So I think that
What
meeting
else
with
was-
WSC will be very helpful for all of
yeah,
us.
I think it will too. But I'm curious. What is a SWIFT inspection? What is that?
The stormwater management, it's a general stormwater permit that I think people will operate on when they're disturbing a site for construction purposes. It's like temporary. It ends, it's opened when you start digging. It ends when it is stabilized and it's a neat little box. It is not our, it's related to one project versus our MS4 is ongoing forever, hopefully.
Who issues this permit? Do we issue it, the township, the SWIFT permit?
No, that's a state.
The state of Minnesota issues it?
I like that I'm getting this right. I'm like, why don't you speak to it?
And to whom, so every time, so somebody builds a house, let's say, and they're gonna have excavators on site, and they're gonna be doing some digging and some stuff. Does that home building contractor take out a SWIFT permit from the state of Minnesota? Is that what it is?
It's a stormwater pollution prevention plan. It's a permit issued by the MPCA, and there's triggers at which point that permit is required to be issued. And it could be a disturbance of a site that's over an acre. It could be a cubic yardage of dirt. It could be a grading operation. But there are trigger points that you need this permit if you do X, Y, or Z.
And then, is this something that our building inspector is monitoring, or is this something that the state of Minnesota, like the Pollution Control Agency or somebody sends out folks to see if the permit's being complied with? I've just never heard of this thing. I don't know what it is.
The state does have inspectors that will stop by active construction sites randomly to verify compliance.
Okay.
It doesn't guarantee that they will. I've been on many projects where they've never shown up, and there's other projects they do. It's random.
So in our township, when someone takes out a building permit to build a house, it sounds like we have our building inspector is monitoring like compliance with, do they have a silt fence in place? Is a silt fence holding, that sort of thing? That's not a SWIFT inspection though, right?
Yeah.
It is.
Stormwater management.
So in other words, let's see if I get this straight. So the homeowner or the building contractor takes out a permit with the Pollution Control Agency, and our building inspector sort of enforces that permit and makes sure that the permit is being complied with. Is that what it is?
So the permit
I'm just
is
not clear on the relationship here. between all
Yeah,
this,
the
right?
permit's issued to the owner of the building or
Okay.
site development or whatever may be. And it's pretty general practices that you're monitoring. Are they sending dirty water off site? Is there erosion issues? Is there?
And the person who does that monitoring is our building inspector, not the state of Minnesota.
State of Minnesota just doesn't have enough staffing to verify compliance on all sites. So they will, through MS4 and other resources, ask and require, if you see something, you're saying something, and the owner is supposed to be doing the inspections to be compliant with the state, and it's independent of the township. But if the township has an educated person on site and they're seeing something, it's a chance to document it and get compliance in a much more direct manner than assuming that the state's ever going to be up on site.
All right.
But our building inspector doesn't have to do the inspections. It's self-regulated. So if you're pulling a permit out, if you're disturbing enough dirt, you're responsible to keep your silt fence managed. But if there is a problem, then yes, our building inspector could be the whistleblower, let's say. And then the water shed could be the whistleblower. You could be the whistleblower, or any of us, as far as if there's an issue. So we don't have to go and ensure that compliance. It's supposed to be kind of self-regulated, self-insured.
And the requirements outlined in that permit are very likely in your ordinance and something that they should be complying with under the building permit being issued.
So it sounds like maybe the services that they would propose to provide under 5.4 really aren't covered by our building inspector at all. I mean, they might be if he feels like making a report, but they might not be. And so maybe we need WSB to be monitoring this just as they proposed.
I think that's where the conversation comes in. And if it's another form that your building official has that just gets submitted through your MS4 permit organizer for storage to say, yes, we were out on 7 construction sites. We issued 3 citations. Here's the record of the citations. That's where he would be on site more to be able to assist with that. If there's a breakdown there or there's too much coordination, there might be other forums to assist with that. And I think that's what part of task one is going to help with the organizational structure and reporting identify.
Okay, so, it sounds like maybe the sense of the board is that we should, engage the services of WSB, for tasks, 1, and 5. And with the proviso that in regard to task 1, the quarterly meetings are full special board meetings, correct?
I agree.
And what, you have another comment?
No, that's
Okay. Okay, and so what I would do is I will move that we enter into an agreement with WSB to undertake those two parts of the offerings, and further that we ask our attorney to draft an appropriate agreement that's on our terms. Or do we need to do that or not? Or can we just sign this letter?
Mr. Chair, I believe that you already have an agreement with them and it's just a work order or a task order.
Oh, okay.
I believe.
WSC?
I think so. Or unless I'm thinking of something else. I know I reviewed a task order just recently. I can't remember if it was with them or
That's
someone else.
Bolton and Maggie.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Bolton. Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. So, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to get that in place.
Okay, so that would be my motion to accomplish those two things. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Got any thoughts on it? Okay. So hearing none, I think we probably need a roll call since this calls for entering into a contract once it's drafted in proper form.
Supervisor Bulow?
Aye.
Supervisor Dana?
Aye.
Chairman Ginsburg?
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that presentation.
Thank you.
It's been very helpful. Thank you. And it'll really be helpful to make sure that our MS4 stuff's all being, taken care of. All the I's dotted and the T's crossed. Thank you. Okay. Okay, next up would be Supervisor John Bulow with a couple of topics here. On roads, I think, mostly, and MS4.
Yeah. Actually, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I will be marking them. I need a little bit more information before I go out and do it. The 28th Street, I haven't put that out for prices yet, but I will be doing that.
Okay, do you think should we put this on for December? We have some prices then, okay. And then when you do that, John, can you make sure that it's apples and apples? In other words, whatever the stuff was that Matt said he was gonna do, that they're doing all the same stuff, so we can kind of compare apples and apples. Okay, appreciate that. And then marking the catch basins, this is for the snow plows, I think, right? So, I don't know, Dave, would you be willing to give us a little brief description about what that is, or do you want to just have a sidebar with them later on? That'd be great if you would, just so we and everybody kind of knows what that's all about. And I appreciate it. Appreciate your being here.
Mr. Chair, Board, at the request of our snowplow operators, I marked some 30 catch basins. So not all of them in the township, just ones on basically the curvy part of the roads where they have curves and it's kind of tough to take and see where the road is or where the catch basins are. So it was to take and prevent damage to the catch basin structure themselves and to the boulevards that we're responsible to maintain.
Okay. How do you mark them? Do you just put in those,
Those 4-foot reflective driveway markers.
like those, they're fiberglass or something
Yep.
like that? Okay.
Correct. And again, I would take, there were some of them in the tool shed, along with a map. The map indicated where the actual structures were. Like I said, there's about 30-some catch basins that I had marked. And there's some markers left in the shed for the township parking lot to mark. I'm assuming Dan would take and mark those. If I needed markers, I would just go to Fleet Farm or Menards and buy some, and they were like only a couple bucks a piece.
Yeah. Okay. And I suppose time is of the essence, because once the ground freezes, you're not putting in the marker anymore, right? I mean,
Then you go out with a drill.
you call it the drill. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the help. Okay. So, good. So that'll be done. And then what else was I going to say about that? On the snow plowing, we did sign the contract, right? We got our snow plowing contract signed now.
Yes.
Speaking
The
of snow.
revised, yes, the revised. Yes.
Right.
Today.
Okay, and so, yeah, and one of the revisions that was made was that the, Matt didn't want to plow the parking lot anymore, and so Miller's gonna plow the parking lot now.
Correct.
And that's part of the contract.
Yeah, M&S Tree, yeah, used to do our snow plowing.
Yep.
So Miller Excavating, we signed an agreement with them to snow plow our roads and our parking lot.
Okay. Great, so we're set for winter. Let it snow. Let it snow. We, the other thing I wanted to mention was that Carrie went ahead and sent in our updated information on road mileage to the county. I think you sent one in too, but it didn't have Twin Pines or whatever, which is a new road, which we now get to take credit for. So Carrie sent that in with the Twin Pines mileage added. And how much do we get? We get some kind of a stipend for that, don't we? Or some kind of a contribution for that from the county?
Yeah, it's by mileage, and maybe Chad, you could speak of this a little bit more intelligent than I can, but in 2023, we received $58,000 in fuel tax from our mileage. And if you kind of do the math, it looks like we get roughly $1,200 a mile.
Really? Okay.
So a third of a mile can be a big deal.
Yeah, and that's from the state gas tax that they collect. Okay, good. So we do have some revenue that doesn't come only from taxpayers. Okay. All right, so next we should probably talk about the town hall renovation update. We've got a lot of news on that front. As people can see, we're in the midst of the renovation here.
Okay, so we got the concrete poured just in the nick of time for the election, so that worked well. And I think people really loved, people were very confused at first where everyone is going. Because when we were voting, people were just coming in and they weren't coming out. And so everyone was like, where are they going? And so having that circulation was really a good idea. Yeah, having that sidewalk. Yeah. So I'm glad we're making some headway there. We've had to redesign a fair amount of the kitchenette to accommodate ADA compliance, and we added a whole bunch of receptacles. Are we going to talk about the pricing now, or?
We probably should,
Okay.
yeah.
And then Kelly has helped with material selections and colors and stuff, which is absolutely fabulous. So.
And Kelly has credentials, right?
I think so. Yeah.
I mean,
professional.
She's a professional interior designer, so and we're getting her services free.
Yeah. Volunteer. Yeah. Mhm. So Phil, you've been working with City View on the low voltage for access control. One thing we should talk about is the inner vestibule door, how we're going to act, if we're going to have access control and or not.
Yeah. And so, right. And so, because if we have access control in this inner door, I know that months ago it was talked about that we would have separate access control in this inner door, so we could grant access to the kind of the vestibule area, but not to the main hall. But question is, how important really is that, and because it does add cost that hasn't been necessarily fully accounted for in the original bid. So I actually kind of look to you for kind of what's your thinking and your recommendation on that, you know?
I think it's hard to make decisions when we haven't really defined how we're gonna operate. And if the sheriff's the only person accessing the bathrooms, I would trust them to not rifle through our chair collection. So,
Our chairs,
or whatever else.
Yeah.
So I think a manual lock would be sufficient at this time, given the complexity of the double swings that we had to do to accommodate the ADA, and then just the amount of magnetic locking and high-tech stuff that would probably break and the cost. I don't see the value right now on locking the inner door. And we've been looking to like Baytown Township's community center, and they don't have that. I mean, they have a door inside, which is very nice, but it doesn't lock. So I think we could settle with that.
Makes sense to me. What do you think, John? Makes sense? Okay, so I think that makes sense, and it's a way of kind of keeping costs from kind of creeping up, because some of these, yes, so the cost of doing that would be, I think, you know, it just adds one cost.
Well, it would be a lot cheaper if it was single door. The double door action is the thing that's really complicating it. And I think I'd rather have the double door opening width than a single door.
Which, didn't we have to have that because the building inspectors, something said that was ADA compliant without it?
I don't know if the width, there might be an egress requirement, but probably not. Okay. But I mean, we don't want to have like a single door entering there. I don't think.
Right. In case we have to bring some big stuff in or something.
Yeah, the voting equipment.
Yeah. Okay, so so the City View Electric, they're the ones that work with Mission. So Mission, and we had talked to this place over in Hudson, these guys over in Hudson, about doing, you know, at the same time we're doing the building project, obviously it makes sense to do some of this other low voltage wiring stuff. One of which was the security cameras. So we need some security cameras here so that we're kind of doing what most public buildings do and have security cameras. We also need some kind of an electronic door entry system. We'd gotten some prices from this outfit in Hudson, but they have proven very difficult to get a hold of, and they haven't been responsive. We've had a tremendous difficulty. They were the original ones that worked on our audio video system here, and we can't get them to respond and haven't for several months. So we're thinking probably that we don't want to work with them.
No.
So we're going to work with City View, which is the company that Mission Construction works with. And let's see, what have we got? We got a proposal from them, but this would have to be put into our language, I think. Which one is this here? Let's see. They got access control system for 2 doors. Does this envision the inner door?
I think it
locking?
does. Yeah.
So actually, we probably want to go back to the original proposal.
Right.
That did not envision the second door opening. And that was for a, let's see, mobile ready card reader keypad combo, so that if somebody, and this is going to be a deal where you can use your cell phone to get in. So if we give permission to somebody to come in, we give them a code. They have to download an app onto their phone, and then they can use their phone to enter. But if their phone falls in the snowbank or something, they can't use it, we'll have a keypad where they can enter a number.
Is this something Andrew could support if we break it?
Probably.
Yeah. So we have backup. We have City View, we have Andrew.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Okay, so, and we actually had a special meeting at which we approved that part of it, the door entry system, I think. The original one that only had one door that locked. Or no, this actually calls for 2 door strikes, doesn't it? 2 electric door strikes. So actually, we should get this a little cheaper. We should ask them to modify this, shouldn't we, to, you know, to just have one electric door strike, and the other one's gonna be a mechanical lock on the inside door, is what you're saying, right? Okay. So maybe we can get that a little cheaper. But the idea would be that though, that we would have this, cloud-based, cell phone entry kind of system with a backup of a keypad entry in case their cell phone doesn't work. Then the second thing they're gonna do is a camera system. And they've proposed a 7-camera system. And, let's see, we got a map here, or not a map, but a drawing showing where the cameras would be. And so they would propose, they have interior cameras are one in the conference room. Looks like one in the main hall and one in the vestibule. It's 3 inside. The vestibule or foyer, the entry foyer, that covers the whole entry foyer, including the entrance to the building from the inside. And on the outside, 2 cameras looking at the area, the drive-through area in front of the front door, and then 2 more cameras looking at the parking lot. And that they propose to do for $5,420. That includes a recorder that will record video. I'm not sure how much video, does it say? I don't know if he specified that. Maybe we need some specificity on how much video that is. But presumably, several days worth of video will record. And the recorder will be a recorder that we'll have here in the building, as I understand it. This proposal also calls for adding a monitor cable to the office so that someone in the office can monitor these cameras and see who's trying to enter the building and so forth. And that system, as I say, is $5,420, but plus $180 for the cabling to the office, so you can monitor it from the office. And then finally, the burglar alarm system. We're going to reuse our old system, but we have to move and extend the wiring to reinstall the keypad and everything for the burglar alarm. And presumably, maybe there has to be some wiring also to rehook up, some of the motion sensors and that kind of thing. So you're reusing the old system, but some wiring work needs to be done because some of the walls were removed and so forth. That they're proposing to do it for $670. But we'll still continue to work with our existing alarm system people for the monitoring and so forth. And then they're also offering a monitoring service, but I'm assuming we're not, taking them up on that, but maybe we want to, I don't know. But so those are the basics that we need to do, I guess. Has anybody got any thoughts about this proposal on the part of City View?
We should add a camera that points to that door on the outside.
Oh, that points to it or away from, like showing who's approaching it?
Yeah.
Like a Ring doorbell type thing?
Yeah. Well. So both these, there's no outdoor surveillance for either of these areas. One of them is, right into Terry's office. So I guess this one covers that. I just don't. Maybe this door should be covered from the outside. I know it's an emergency exit door, but it should be propped open.
Okay, so
I don't know.
you're saying the camera should show us the door itself or show us people approaching on this sidewalk? Which one?
Oh, the sidewalk approach. That's a good idea.
Well, we can certainly have them add a camera because I think the capacity of the system he was going to sell us is 8 cameras. So
Yeah, let's add one.
we could add that one. So it'd be kind of facing like a Ring doorbell showing who's coming up the sidewalk.
Yeah, or pointing toward just any exterior door at this point should probably studios can do.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Pointing at it from,
It would be cheaper to wire it if it was just pointing that direction.
that's true. Yeah, just back-to-back cameras that, okay, I think I know what you mean. So we're probably not ready to decide on this because we don't have a price on this yet.
No, but we could authorize up to this amount, because it'll be less than that when we remove that door.
We could do that.
Or,
Yeah, we could do that. And then we could authorize up to an amount, and then we could have, once we get a price from them and some specifics, adding that additional camera, we would be in a position to have Troy draft an appropriate contract.
oh, yeah.
You think?
Contract directly. So they don't have prevailing wage, no, we don't need to since we're contracting with them. How does that work? We have to have prevailing wage from a contractor, but if we're contracting directly with a vendor, it doesn't have to be any prevailing wage? You know, I mean, it's public money either way.
Yeah, so typically prevailing wage at a town level is only required if you're spending federal or state monies. So
Okay.
it usually doesn't apply.
So it's the ARPA was for the remodel.
Yeah, and maybe that triggers it.
Okay.
I'm not sure, but so it comes down from the state or the federal government.
Well, I should ask our treasurer, are these contracts that we're doing, these side contracts that we're doing with CityView, are these coming out of ARPA funds or are these coming out of capital improvement funds?
We will probably come out of capital improvement funds because by the time we get there, we'll already have, unless we have a signed contract, we get both funds in there for health.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we're getting down to the wire.
And so most likely these would be our capital improvement fund
Okay.
funds that
That's
would be
fine.
used and not ARPA funds.
I didn't know what the trigger was.
Well, and Mr. Chair, I'm not sure that ARPA triggers prevailing wage
Okay.
either. I've just never looked at that. I haven't heard that applying. But usually any sort of state or federal grants will specifically say one of the things you have to pay prevailing wage.
All right, so let's see. So yeah, so if we, how much would we have to authorize? So maybe 12. No, it comes to just under probably 13,000 right now, I think, right? Let's see, that's 11, 12.
It's 14.
What's 14?
14,180.
Okay. So we should say 15 maybe. So we could authorize up to 15,000 for these low voltage services, and then get an updated quote, and then have it put into our contract language. So I will move that we do that we authorize up to, what did I just say,
15,000.
15,000, to secure these low voltage construction services, and that we, once we get updated proposal from CityView, we'll have Troy create a contract.
I'll second.
So moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call?
Chairman Loosberger,
Aye.
Supervisor Dan,
Aye.
Supervisor Lewis.
Aye. Right.
One other thing that came up is the well bladder, if we were interested, or the pressure tank, if we're interested in replacing that, since it has to be reinstalled or not. It's not currently in scope. It's something to consider. It's sitting over there.
You know,
Anything else?
it might be on the cusp of failure, but it might last another 20 years, you know? I don't know. Well, I mean, and here's a question I have, and maybe you have a thought on this, but is it a lot cheaper to replace it today versus
No.
5 years from now?
Well, I don't know. Not necessarily.
You know, because I mean, they're going to hire a plumber, they're going to charge us retail for that thing, whatever it is, and you know.
Plus
that's-
markup on the plumber, plus the general contractor markup, yes.
Right, but if we just hire a plumber to do this 5 years from now when it fails, maybe we avoid some of those markups. So I'd kind of be in favor of just reusing it.
I think right now, Mission is planning on, if you're talking about the water heater,
No, the
No,
bladder.
the well pressure
The
tank.
well
tank.
pressure tank, okay. All right. sorry.
Yeah, the water heaters, yes, they are replacing the water heater. And the cabinets, we're gonna have to talk. So the cabinets were in scope, then they went out of scope because apparently they weren't compliant, but I talked to Isaac and we can have cabinets in fact. But I'm not sure we recognized a deductive change when we did all the modifications at the last minute to get the building permit. So I'll have to talk to them about that.
Right.
Friday.
So in other words, we should have been given a credit for deleting the cabinets.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll say it's in there somewhere, but I'll run that down by Friday.
Okay.
So. But if we do want to do cabinets, which I'm assuming we do, is it something that someone would want to go pick up cabinets, or do you want to hire the contractor to get cabinets, or what colors should they be, and all these decisions?
Interior designer on the colors.
Okay.
As far as cabinets, well, I don't know. I mean, if we're already paying for it, if it's already part of the contract, then we're all set, right? It's already part of the contract. We haven't really modified that contract right now, have we, to delete those cabinets?
Only if it was included in one of the previously approved change events, which would have been 1, 2, or 3.
Oh. Well, so we have to find that out, is what
Yeah.
you're saying. But I mean, I'm guessing, that's already part of the contract price, and so we probably can just go sailing forth with it,
Yeah.
If we're gonna have to pay a lot of extra money, then I'd say, somebody should go down to Home Depot or something and pick some up.
Go to Menards for 11%.
Yeah, 11%, there you go. Okay, anything else on the remodeling, town hall remodel issue?
I mean, everyone's kind of been hearing things, or do you have anything else that's come up when you've been here, or Carrie, or?
The only thing I'm aware of is this low voltage stuff that kind of came up,
Yeah.
That's because we were gonna contract separately for those low voltage services from the get-go. We weren't gonna make that part of the contract. And so we just have to deal with that. And our original vendor from Hudson isn't responsive, so that's why we're going with this new vendor. And then we were I was kind of surprised to learn that, but I guess it's the case, that the contract didn't specify that Mission would move the wiring for the alarm system. Therefore, we have to bear that expense as well. It's only 600 and some bucks, but still surprised me a little bit that wouldn't be part of the deal. But I guess it's not.
No. The only other thing is the mess that they're making, or driving over the grass or whatnot, we can hold retainage until they fix that. We have a mechanism at the end, once we finish, if we're not satisfied, or if they've destroyed something, we have that. We can make them fix it.
Okay.
So.
I do have one question. So the remote access doors, will we still be able to get in through a traditional key entry?
That's a good question.
It'd be nice to have the option.
I don't know.
I don't think it would. I mean, I think that the electronic door lock will supersede that. Because it'll be an electronic strike. It would have to be disengaged from either the keypad or the card reader.
Now, although I will say this, I assume we're not doing any kind of electronic entry on that door. That door still will be operated by a mechanical key lock, correct?
Yes,
And so we would have access to the building, even in the case of a power outage, through that door, because it will be a mechanical door lock.
And there's typically, well, I'll check, but there's typically like a battery backup. Doesn't last forever, but with the electronic stuff, like a 9-volt or something.
A 9-volt battery can operate that solenoid? I have a hard time believing that.
Maybe like a 6-pack of them, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so I think we'd be able to get in though, using that key in this door here, because there won't be an electronic lock on that door. Oh, we don't have a key for that door?
We can rekey.
Yeah. Call a locksmith. The deal's off. Okay. Let's see. Okay, anything else on the town hall renovation?
No, do we have to approve these, the pay applications? are just administrative because the funds have already been approved, right?
Which is that now?
Like the contractor pay applications, we don't need to do anything on it,
The contractor what?
like their invoices.
Oh, their invoices.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
'Cause those funds have already been
right.
approved.
I think so. Troy, were you going to say something?
Mr. Chair, no, I mean, it's typically any changes need to come back, but otherwise, if it's just a matter of administrating and, ultimately the town board though should okay payments.
There are a couple of these changes here that I've got in my packet. Maybe I should ask you about
Yeah,
those.
so I thought we had already approved the structural engineering at the special meeting.
Oh, okay.
I guess this is just the invoice coming in, but if the funds have been approved, I don't think we need to reapprove the amount.
Yeah, I think that's probably.
We authorized up to $1,000 so they could continue on that work.
Right. And
So
that's
I
what
think change event 6 is approved. The kitchen electrical is something we could talk about. Is we added 4 receptacles, 4 outlets, and it requires a sub panel, and they're charging $1,950
Okay.
plus the contractor markup. That does not include drywall patching or paint on that back wall where the extra receptacles were added. I would say we just approve that.
Yeah, now that back wall, they had to break through the sheetrock for the plumbing. But, so I mean, is the drywall work already paid for because they did the plumbing work back there and took out some drywall in order to do the plumbing? Or do we have to pay for part of the drywall because a little bit of it has to do with a new electrical?
Probably a little bit of it will have to do with a little
Okay.
an extra outlet we wanted up there.
Wow.
But I don't know, were there any comments on the locations of the outlets? In my sketch. So here's one thing, for ADA compliance, we have to have the microwave on the counter.
Okay.
And I know there's some desire to retain counter space and elevate it onto a shelf. So we'll have an outlet there, but technically the microwave should reside in an accessible location. But if we were to temporarily put it on a shelf from time to time, that would be acceptable since it'll be.
So there'd be outlets at both locations.
Yeah, at both locations,
Okay.
yes.
Sounds good. Quad out receptacle at on the hall side of the counter. That's a good idea. To me, I think this looks great, and I knew that they'd have to add an auxiliary,
Sub panel, yeah.
Sub panel.
Yeah, we knew that.
Because ours is full. Okay, so in order to agree to that, they want us to sign this thing, customer signature here. Is that sufficient, or do we need any kind of additional contractual language?
Mr. Chair, if this is just a change order, that should be fine.
Okay. All right, and so that's something that will require a vote. John, you got this in your packet? This is about the outlets and stuff?
I never looked at that. Yeah.
I just want you to look at it and make sure you understand what they're doing here. So they're putting in some additional outlets.
Yeah.
And you heard Rachel's description about where they're going and stuff. And so that's going to cost, was it going to cost $1,600 or something like that?
It's like $2,000, $2,086.50 with markup.
Oh, the markup, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we're talking about. So I'm going to move that we approve this additional expense for these additional outlets that weren't called for in the original plan. And that we agree to this change order. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Is there any at the floor level down there, Carrie, do you know, in that little nook there, is there any, like, down near, any receptacles near the floor?
I don't know, I'd have to go look.
Okay,
I've never used them in that area.
I don't know. While the walls are open, this would be the opportunity to put it in there, but I don't know if we need that.
So you're talking about the wall that separates the kitchenette from the conference room? Because the back wall is going to have cabinets on it and dishwashers and refrigerators.
No, anywhere in that corner here. I don't know what this wall you want to put on there, plug in the back room or something. But you don't have to.
That'd be a good idea. But
Well, if we're going to go with a different configuration, then I suppose we're probably going to have it won't be the same dollar amount, right?
Right. Well, and we don't need to, I just thought of it now because it's here.
Mhm.
If we have plenty of outlets, that's fine. We can plug it into the quad.
Well, no, you couldn't use the quad outlet because you'd have to run an extension cord, like over the counter or something to do it, right? I mean, if you want a floor level outlet back in that kitchenette area, you can't use that quad outlet unless you're willing to run an extension cord around the corner or over the counter or something like that. So maybe the thing to do would be to approve,
This one, then we can look at
Well-
if we want to add.
approve up to, pick a dollar figure, $2,500 or something like that. And then let you decide whether we have adequate outlets or something. Want to do that?
Chairman?
Yeah.
I do have a question. So when we finish the outer counter going into the meeting room here, it might be a good idea to add outlets underneath that counter. For is it on the outside? I know it's on the inside in the galley, but is it on the
You see that-
outside?
Okay, I don't know if you're familiar with this
Yeah.
plan here, but you see this where it says a quad outlet? That will be the outlet that would serve this area in front of this counter
Okay, all right.
and under the counter. Now, if you put an outlet on this wall, you have to reach way under the counter to put something in, and that would be kind of unsatisfactory. But these outlets here would provide, electrical service for whatever you want to use out in front of that, including maybe up on top.
Yeah, I was thinking for the election, we use 4 iPads on the table in
Oh,
front.
yeah. and the
So
table-
that would accommodate the 4 iPads?
Correct.
Great,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Okay,
Well,
so,
I should verify what height these quad receptacles are mounted at,
okay, yeah.
if they're on the floor or over the counter. I
So-
thought they're on counter level. That was my assumption.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right, so maybe, are we ready to proceed with anything, or is
Yeah.
it okay if we?
They need to start wiring that, I think. So
Okay.
if we want them, we should approve them.
All right, so I'll move that we authorize up to $2,500 to cover the additional outlets in the kitchenette area. And, obviously that, we leave it up to you, Rachel, to make a decision about where they should go and how they should be configured. And don't spend any more than you have to.
No one ever said we have too many outlets here.
Yeah, true.
No.
Okay, do I have a
I'll
second?
second.
For that motion?
Yeah.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Any thoughts? So we'll need a roll call then.
Okay, Supervisor Dana?
Hi.
Chairman Eastwood?
Aye.
Supervisor Dewar?
All right. Anything further on the
I don't think so.
model? Okay. All right, very good. So let's see. So then item 10 here is I was going to talk about cost sharing with Baytown Township on the 30th Street thing. And so here's the thing about that. I've talked to a couple of people on the town board.
The new town board?
No, the old town board. And so they're in a terrible state of flux, because a majority of their board has not been reelected. There are only 2 remaining members from the original board. And my understanding is they discussed it. I asked them to discuss this at their November meeting, which was held the day before the election. And I guess they did, and they want to participate, with us in terms of rebuilding 30th Street. But most of them lost the election. So they really can't speak for the new board, although everybody on the board recognizes the need to fix 30th Street. I'm told once you talk to these folks in Baytown, they'll tell you about horror stories about how there's a sinkhole at the east end that's caused by a very badly failed culvert that actually eroded, took away the roadbed basically, and the pavement just sank. They kind of filled it in themselves, and just kind of an emergency thing. But the road itself and that culvert are in terrible shape, and so they do want to go in with us on this and fix it. We got a estimate, engineering estimate of what it would cost to do that stretch of 30th between Oak Green and where it curves up into Baytown there. That's the part that we're proposing to do. And that's $770,000, roughly $775,000, something like that. And so they would be picking up half of it, under this proposal. And they seem to really like the idea, but the problem is that the existing chair, who's also the road supervisor, lost his seat. And so he's only got one meeting to go, and that's the December meeting, I think. And then the new board will pick up in January. And these folks can't speak for the new board. I've also talked to the secondary road guy who did stay on the board. And so he understands what we're proposing, and he's on board with it, but he's got to wait to hear from the other board members, as to whether they go along with it. The other issue is that they have to finalize their budgetary process, which I understand is going to happen in maybe January, I guess. But they're working on it now, I think. They're working on the budget now. Hopefully it'll be ready to just approve in January, I think. So the timing will be tight because we want to we want to let the contract for this big project in, I think it's February is our target, right? So the timing will really be tight to know whether Baytown is going to be willing and able to come on board. One thing that John Hall suggested was that if we could defer the actual construction work until 2026, because I understand this will be a 2-year project. And that's something I actually want to ask Chad about. How realistic would that be to say, well, the 30th Street part will be part of the 2026 project, Is that realistic to do it that way? The engineering part all has to happen now, because in order to let contracts, we have to have a final design. But maybe they can defer some of the expense till 2026 when they're talking about doing some bonding maybe and some, dedicating some funds to this, but they can't just do it right away. They can't pull the trigger right away. So,
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think that there's two approaches that could be considered in delaying until 2026. One is if it's just from a funding standpoint and the agreements are in place, you could include it in the package with the other streets and just make it a requirement that that stretch isn't done until 2026 when the cost will be incurred. Or you're looking at a standalone project where you're putting together a plan set after you have agreements in place and bidding it independent of the larger project for purpose of construction in 2026. I think those would be two legitimate approaches to take, depending on what kind of certainty you're getting back from Baytown in these agreements.
right, yeah, and so either make it part of the package, which obviously we wouldn't feel comfortable letting that contract without Baytown's approval, I'd say. But we could defer that part of the project till 2026 to match Baytown's financial picture and needs. The other question is, and you and I did just briefly discuss this, and that is, to what extent are we realizing economies of scale and size if we include the 30th Street part of the project in the larger project versus doing it separately? And I understand you might be able to maybe work up some sort of numbers or percentages or something to kind of let us know, what's the magnitude of the savings that we realized by incorporating 30th Street into the larger project versus not?
Well, Mr. Chair, in my opinion, professional opinion, it is a large enough stretch of road that just the scale of project you're looking at as a whole, by letting or pursuing it as we're pursuing it as one bid package, it's just that much more attractive for a contractor to, find areas in which they could potentially reduce cost or, be a successful bidding party. As a standalone project, the construction cost is still high enough where you're not going to see some economy of scale the wrong direction, where it's a $50,000 project where suddenly prices are way more inflated because it's just kind of small for a contractor to take on. I think it's still a large enough project where you'll still get competitive bids, but it just might be a little bit less attractive as not being a party to that larger scale contract. So I can't sit here and tell you that it's a 10% cost savings, because it's going to really be market dependent. And then if it's 2026, are you bidding it? If you're bidding it as an independent project, you're going to be subject to whatever inflation or cost of materials is looking like during that bidding cycle, and historically that has increased. Whereas if we're bidding it as a part of the larger project, you're going to probably face some of that uncertainty in the bid numbers of the contractor, but we're going to be asking that it's a capped unit price, regardless of them doing it in 25 or 26. It's just the one contracted price.
So it's, long story short, it sounds like it's beneficial to try to incorporate it into the larger project.
I think it would be, but yeah, there are outside factors at play other than the nice box that would fit under.
Right. So I think maybe moving forward, then the thing to do is to try to see how quickly we can get Baytown to commit one way or the other, so that we know whether we should make this 30th Street part of the project. So we'll just work on that in the interim, and ask them to expedite their decision making as much as they possibly can. But it's a difficult situation because the new board doesn't assemble until January, as I understand. Is that your understanding too? January? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Chad.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Okay, so that's kind of where that stands. A little bit of uncertainty there, but we'll work on trying to nail something down with.
Bill, I have a question related to that.
Yeah.
When Chad presented on that, there was some mention of a joint powers agreement. Is that something we have or need for Baytown for that road?
Mr. Chair and board, yes, you would definitely want a joint powers agreement, setting out exactly who's responsible for what and who's going to pay what and all that.
Is that per project? Joint powers is an ongoing thing.
Could be both.
When I've done line road improvement projects, it typically is project specific.
Okay.
But the other thing is maybe maybe this is looking down the road, but maybe we should think about a joint powers agreement to, for maintenance, who's going to maintain it, who's going to contribute to it, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, any line road, by statute, you're supposed to have an agreement in place to designate who's going to do what on that road. It really is a good idea to do that because it helps limit liability as well. If, for instance, Baytown's responsible for a particular mile and there's something that goes wrong on that mile, there's an accident or something, then you have a much better chance to point at them and vice versa.
I think we should do that.
Yeah, I think we should too. So we really need two joint powers agreements, one to agree on this road construction project and another one for long-term maintenance of the road. Yeah. Okay, very good. Let's see, what else? Snow removal, yeah, we talked about that. I don't think I really have anything else about this road situation, but we'll stay tuned. Okay, what's next? We have to review the federal surplus property program eligibility renewal application. Who's got that? Do you have that? Yeah.
Well, the federal surplus property is what we tap into quite often. We just bought a refrigerator from up there. It's federal property that allows federal or state or township employees to take advantage of repurposing, purchasing products from them. And this is a new process for them. This is a brand new application. Troy took a look at it. And in a nutshell, they're going to ask for us to renew this every so many years. And it just requires a signature from you, Chairman, and whoever else wants to be eligible to purchase these items at this warehouse, which is located in Arden Hills. I would presume that Dan Killo would be on this list as our building manager. The supervisors, myself, and the deputy clerk. If you can think of anybody else, or
Yeah,
but that's typical. And what you're looking at there is what they used to require. They would pass that out and we would sign it, and it's quite simple.
so in the past, that's kind of the same group of people that, that you're nominating for this thing right now.
Or do you want to rein it in a little bit? Do you want to just have a couple people listed?
Yeah, I don't see any problem with doing it the same way. But do we have to pay anything on an annual basis, or this just enables us as a municipality to have access to this, to purchase items from the surplus property
Correct.
organization?
It gives us access.
Okay.
No dues, no membership.
Okay. Anybody got any questions about this? Everybody got a copy of this in there? You got a copy.
The trick to this, I've purchased through their Arden Hills place up there. But if you can find out what you want first and then go directly to that agency and get it, you get a much better deal than if you go through the Arden Hills place.
But that's interesting, and how would you know though? Let's say we're looking for a refrigerator. How would you know that, well, it's DHS has one in their break room that they're gonna sell? Yeah. How do you find out?
They have a phone where you can contact a person who keeps track of all the incoming things.
Oh.
So they divert it from coming into the building to your vehicle, and you can get free things.
And you've been able to, you've done this too?
Yeah, I've gotten free, big floor sweepers you see in the,
Oh, yeah.
gotten those for free,
Oh, geez.
and a lot of other things.
Well, they don't charge too much though, do they? How much did we pay for that fridge?
About $190, I believe.
190. I suppose maybe you could have gotten it cheaper from the agency, but it's still a big savings, I mean, what does a refrigerator cost, $1,000 or something?
Yeah, how long will anyone last?
Well, there's that too, yeah. Better to get the old. Anyway, it sounds like a good thing to me. I'll move that we go ahead and sign up. And you're saying we have to do this every so many years, or is this a lifetime deal or a one-time deal or something? What is it?
I'd have to look into it, but they do require some updates
Okay.
every so many years.
Well, anyway, I'll move that we go ahead and participate and that we have all those folks authorized that you just mentioned. Anybody want to second it? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Do you have anything? Well, you turned off your mic.
I was an accident.
You were turning it on. John, anything else? So, all right. So, hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of us availing ourselves of this program, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay? Nay. Okay, so we'll go ahead and proceed with that. And then I think there's another issue here. Well, it's the tennis sanitation contract extension that we should be looking at. And I assume, Carrie, that you've got a little introduction for that too?
Sure.
Tennis Sanitation, we signed an original contract with them back in 2014, when it was before my time, but my understanding is that they wanted to bring in just one recycling company to help preserve the roads. Because, a lot of people are using a variety of companies for recycling. So that was established back in 2014, and ever since then, we have an option to renew our agreement with them by extending the contract. And that's where we're at today. And then they also include rate increases. So the current extension agreement that you're looking at, clearly they're increasing their rates quite a bit.
Can you give us an idea of sort of
Yeah, so
how that's changing?
Yeah, so back in 2014, they charged $3 a household.
Mhm.
And let's see here. So if you look over the years, let's see here. So 2021, we signed an agreement for 2 years, January 2022 through December 2024. And those rates were $4 and $4.50. And so now we're looking at a rate increase from $4 to $5.25. And then that's it for 2025, and then another rate increase to $6 in 2026.
Okay. Well, who are the other competitors that we could be looking at?
A lot of them.
Yeah, and so, is this a 1-year or 2-year contract extension?
2 years.
2 years. And are we bound to it, or is it, we could still leave in 60 days or something if we want to, or how does that work?
That is my understanding.
Okay. John, tell me a little bit more about who some of the other folks are that we might solicit proposals for.
Waste management, a lot of those big companies.
Well, maybe we should. I mean, certainly we can't really terminate it now because, I mean, we've got people who rely on this service, but maybe we should be looking around a little bit. That's $6 per what? Per pickup? Per household? Okay.
Per household, yes.
And per household per pickup, not per month or something. It's
Per month.
Per month.
Per month.
Okay. Yeah. Please do. If you wouldn't mind using the microphone, just so people who are watching this on YouTube can hear you, because they won't be able to hear you if you're talking back there.
Just to perhaps provide some background.
Sure.
Steve Ebner was the person that went through a quite elaborate process in deciding back in 2014 which recycle company that we should use. And it was decided at the time based on competitive rates as well as some other things that we would go with Tennis. That contract was renewed when I was on the board, and I did some investigating. I think one of the reasons that I liked Tennis and I recommended to the board at the time that we stay with Tennis is that they are very local and they actually don't send any of their stuff outside of the US. A lot of these other larger waste management companies don't necessarily do the recycling that they say they're going to do. And I just thought that they were a really good company. I did talk with some of the other townships around as to who they used. There are other townships that were using Tennis, but like John said, there are other ones out there. They are very competitive, and I like the fact that they actually do keep all of their recycling local, and they actually have a true commitment to doing that. So obviously, you do always want to find the best deal for the township, but I think there's more than just money also that you need to consider. So.
Okay, appreciate the input. It's Marion Apel for the record. That's right. That's right. Okay, so, all right, so, but yeah, I think probably as a practical matter, we probably just should go ahead at this point and do that. I obviously have my usual question for Troy, though, as to whether we ought to use a different form than this one that's been presented to us, or,
So, Mr. Chair and Board, in looking quickly through this agreement, this 2014 form, I'm not seeing an easy out on this. It looks like termination is based on default or their failure to perform, that sort of thing. So just so you know that, if you do move forward with this, I think you should consider yourself bound by, for the entire term of the extension. As far as the form goes, and scanning through this, I mean, I think you're at a point that I would, another extension probably is fine using this language. But frankly, so many of these references are quite old now that I would not recommend that you go beyond this extension term, that you actually negotiated a new agreement if you're interested in going beyond this 2-year extension.
thank you. What, is this going to exceed our budget with these new numbers? Let's see, so 2025 budget's already, even the, wait, no, we just have the 2025 budget in place, right? But will this increase here? It looks like, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's probably maybe close to 20% increase from 2021 to 2025. Is that?
Yeah, actually, they estimated in 2025, the year that we've already budgeted for, their fees are going to be $5.50. So they're actually 25 cents cheaper per household. So
Okay, so we've already factored more than that increase into our budget.
Correct.
Okay. All right, well, in light of all that, I suspect we probably should just do the re-up for 2 years, and then, but in the interim, I suppose we should shop around a little bit and see if they really are competitive. Seems to make sense. So I will move that we renew this contract for 2 years on the terms that have been presented to us. Once again, Council, this just requires us to sign this single sheet of paper. Is that right? I mean, we don't have to.
Right. Mr. Chair, correct. It looks like you're just signing this extension.
Okay. So I'll just move that we go ahead and sign that extension and re-up for 2 years.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? John, any thoughts? Okay. This will call for a roll call then.
Chairman Musburger,
Aye.
Supervisor Daniel,
Aye.
Supervisor Bureau.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Is there any old or new business? Anybody wants to?
There was a cul-de-sac, Eisinger, I don't know what road, starts with an O, there's a bunch of them, that said that they missed the pothole patching. I'm just wondering, was that taken care of or addressed or called back?
I forget his name, I talked to him.
Frank,
Yeah,
the pothole guy?
yeah.
Yeah.
He said he was gonna go out there the next day. And that was a couple weeks ago.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's make sure we follow up, make sure it actually happened. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
A newsletter, a township newsletter, I was trying to put together. It's been 4 months. But I need material from somebody, anybody. I was thinking maybe Rachel could write up a little blurb on the renovations, unless you'd like to do that.
Yep, I can do that.
Chair. Would you do that?
Mhm.
Okay, that'd be great. And then do you have a little?
Yes,
something?
I'm working on my epistle to the Romans, and I'm working on it.
I don't
And
feel I have the authority to
I-
write the whole thing myself.
No. I'll
I could make
have
things
some-
up.
I'll have something for you, by the end of the week.
That would be great.
Are we
Yeah.
gonna have something on the road situation? Because I think there's people are, I mean, we talked a lot about roads, there's a lot of money that was approved, there's some confusion on the what pavement management is versus big road
I'll try to-
projects and what's gonna happen.
I'll try to
there.
give a brief update on that in my Chairman's Corner article that I'm working
Okay.
on.
So I'll get something from each of you, preferably maybe by the end of the week or next week. Okay.
Okay.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Oh,
All
and
right.
to mention that we have it on YouTube too,
What's that?
the meetings broadcast.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
that'll be part of the
That's a good
Chairman's
one.
Corner as well, yeah.
Yes.
And I'm gonna talk about the fact that we've got a link on our website. And is it still gonna reside under the same, tab?
At the moment.
Yeah, at the
time,
moment.
yeah.
Okay, that's what I'll put in.
Until we change our website. If you have
Okay.
any other ideas, share them with me.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Any other old or new business? Let's see, what else? Time for public comments. We've got a 3-minute limit. Anybody from the public would like to get up and make a comment, or ask a question, that sort of thing? Please, yeah.
Gary Heiser at 290 Neal Avenue North. I guess the 3 minute starts now. My question is just for clarification on the accessory buildings. I did find in there where the current one says no commercial use or commercial related storage is allowed. I asked, hey, is that really needed? Is it stated somewhere else? So I thought I read that. And under home occupations, 10, how does that, where it's talking about the different types of businesses, and it says any business activity occurring on the property shall be carried wholly within the principal and accessory structure. So I'm wondering why the one in the building accessory is needed when it seems like we're already talking about that. So I don't know if we're setting ourselves up for controversy when it comes to looking at one or the other. Thank you.
I'll take a stab at it, but I want council to tell me how far off I am. But it seems to me the presumption is that commercial use is not allowed in accessory structures. But the exception to that is if you have obtained a interim use permit to allow you to conduct a commercial business at your residence. Would I be correct about that?
Home occupation, yeah.
That's correct, Mr. Chair. And then, of course, with the IUP comes the ability to place restrictions on it, conditions, that sort of thing. So as was asked when we were talking about it earlier tonight, you have a system in your ordinance to specifically allow commercial use of an accessory structure, but it's only after having gone through that IUP process.
Yeah, and 10.21 says businesses that meet the following conditions do not require a certificate of compliance, conditional use permit, or special conditional use permit, and yet it still addresses accessory structures.
But I don't know. Maybe is that referring to commercial uses that are in one of the commercial business use?
Yes.
In a commercial zone, maybe? Is that what it's talking about?
No.
It's a type of use, so like being an accountant, is that level that doesn't require a permit? If the repairing motor vehicles, that would be a higher level of
There's different types of businesses, and they go through each type of different business use, and a type 1 business use does address using an accessory structure for the business, and it does not require a conditional use permit. So that's in our 10. So I think our accessory structure new ordinance that we're going to be looking at could be simplified by referring to the home occupation ordinance rather than calling out no commercial use.
So how would you propose that the language be changed?
Instead of calling out no commercial use specifically for your accessory structures, you're already addressing that in your
So just be silent on it and not say anything about commercial use?
Well, you can either be silent on it, because it's implied that for commercial use, you're going to be looking at your home occupations ordinance. Or you can say any questions or what have you about use in there referred to home occupation. So you can direct them there if you'd like to be more clear. But I didn't think we should state in there that we are not allowing commercial use when our ordinance 10 specifically addresses accessory structures with business use. Two different terminologies, business use versus commercial use, but then I don't see either of those defined in there either. So that opens you up to a little bit of conflict too. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll have to take a look at section 10 and see if it presents some kind of a conflict. We'll take a look at that.
So, Mr. Chair, we certainly can make reference over that, to that. No commercial use except as expressly allowed in chapter whatever. So we certainly can make that change. But just so you know, generally speaking, ordinances need to be interpreted as a whole. So if you have a general prohibition one place, but you have a specific allowance somewhere else, those are interpreted together, and the specific language is going to prevail over the general.
Thank you. Thanks. Any other public comment? Yes, please.
Tamara Morrissey, 2465 Periwinkle Avenue. I just got a couple of quick things. One is this whole thing. I think what I'm hearing people say is they don't want people running a business out of where people are coming and going to their homes or their structures without. I don't think anybody wants to imply that we are not allowing storage. So if I cut hair for a living and I leave my cutting hair scissors in my shed, that I will not be not in compliance. And if our ordinances don't say that clearly, maybe they should. So that's all I have to say on that one. With regard to the remodel, I was thinking about some of the fuses, and this is just very briefly, like at home, I have a microwave. I have two outlets that can both operate a microwave, but I run them on the same fuse because I will only use one or the other. Otherwise, if both of them, and your electrician might do this if you don't specify, if they both are listed as microwave, they both will have to have a higher fuse. The other fuse thing I was thinking about in listening was that for voting, it might be useful both for fuses, but also for cordeds. If it wasn't a single outlet with 4, but if it was 2 separate, that it could not have to all 4 cords, as someone who sat back there and checked people in. And I'm also wondering at the same time if we can look into having a backup outlet for what's the big machine called? I'm blanking right now. The DS200, which we'd be dead in the water if that was not able to work. So just a little fine tuning there. But the bigger question I have about the remodel, and I've sort of asked this casually a few times, so I'm going to ask it officially, is this going to make it so that the water here can be drank? Or are we not moving our building to a spot where it is drinkable water? Because I assume that most people assume their township hall is a place that if there was an emergency, if there was some major weather catastrophe, it's a place that could be utilized for emergency usage. And to me, having water that you can drink in the building seems like a good idea. And I know the PFAS stuff, as I'm sure the building could get a filter if it was needed, but it obviously would need a space. And I'm just wondering if that has been included, and if it's not, why?
Well, I think we're looking into getting a GAC filter for the building. And we have plenty of space for it in the new utility room. Yeah.
Yeah. So what we have in contract now is I deemed insufficient for our needs. So we have quotes for full-blown PFAS GAC system, but we don't need to pay for that. So we're trying to get that for free. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is we haven't determined if it's going to be the GAC system through the Department of Health, or we're going to pay to put our own reverse osmosis. But one of those two options will happen. Absolutely. Yeah, and we have a lot more room now with our mechanical room with the new bathroom layout. So we could accommodate those super giant GAC filters. if that-
they're big, so I'm looking there.
Right.
If you wanted to go there, you'd have to go.
No, it would be in the mechanical space that's not the new mechanical room. Before it was like this tiny little well room. So there is. We're just trying to go the free route first, but if all else fails, we'll throw in the reverse osmosis system.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other public comment? If not, I will entertain.
I will second that. Motion to adjourn.
Okay, well, I'll just say I moved and you seconded. So
Yeah.
it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Okay, oh, yeah, no, I got this.